Kyle, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, so my name's Kyle. I have two YouTube channels, one called Christian Simplicity. That's more like a lifestyle channel talking about minimalism. And then I also have a channel just called Kyle where, I talk about atheism, Catholicism, Orthodoxy, Protestantism, Muslim, basically any belief. But yeah, looking forward to our discussion.
Cool. So the title today was Atheist versus Christian Ethics and Young Earth Creationism. Could you tell me your position on those and jump right in?
Yeah, so I think that their Christian ethics are better because there are no ethics on atheism. I think it always leads to moral anti-realism. And then after being, I used to believe in evolution. I used to be an atheist, but after, going to college, I took some classes on ecology and I started to learning about the difference between micro and macro evolution, and then the problem with the dating methods, and then watching debates and just learning more and more and studying the the most cutting edge science on the subjects. And I started to just more and more doubt the beliefs of, the earth is billions of years old and that we came from monkeys. And so now I'm a skeptic on that, and I'm a young earth creationist.
Okay, cool. So first thing, there is no morality on atheism. I don't know why you think that.
Yeah.
Well, just a preamble. Most academic professors are atheists, like 70%, and like 65% are moral realists. So 65% of academic atheist philosophers believe in moral realism. You don't need God for that. I don't know why you think you need a God for morality.
Well, I don't think you can ever be epistemically justified in any of your ethical claims. And I've heard you say in the past that atheist ethics are better than Christian ethics. But this kind of begs the question, because what is better?
The morality is better. I'm not sure. Like, what begging the question is when you have a premise in your argument that is the same as your conclusion. So I don't know how that would beg the question.
So what is better?
Everything: the epistemology, the ontology, the methodology, the moral system, the moral outcome, the understanding of morality, the logical basis, like literally everything.
No, you're not understanding. What does better mean? Better in what way? Atheist ethics are better. When I say better, I mean one thing. When you say better, you mean one thing. Is there any objective better, or is it just TJump's idea of better?
Like, well, better can mean lots of things. Like, epistemically better means it has a better justification. Ontologically better means that it has a better ontological grounding. It could mean methodologically better means there's a better methodological justification for it. Like, you can mean better. Lots of things could be better.
Well, like you've said in the past that, atheist societies are better. That's the question I'm asking you, is what about atheist societies are better? Better in what way? What does better mean? I understand, the epistemology. I'm talking about specifically ethics. What about atheist ethics is better than Christian ethics?
Well, when comparing societies, you compare murder rates, crime rates, abortion rates, those kinds of things. Like, that's more like an outcome comparison, not a morality comparison, because models of morality aren't societies. Those are different things.
So you're saying they have better, atheist societies have better outcomes. Is that what? So what do you mean by a better outcome? What is a better outcome? For example,
less crime, less death, less teen pregnancy, less abortion, less murder, less.
Why is that better?
Why is that better? Well, again, now you're changing from an epistemic question or methodological question to an ontological question. They're two different subjects. You're confusing the two different subjects.
Well, no.
Like, if we're talking about societies, the question of what makes something better is a different question, and that's already been answered. So if we're asking what is a better society, we already have an answer for what makes something better. That's less crime. So if you want to ask what makes something better, that's a question of what is a moral system, which is completely a different question from what's the better society. There's two different topics. So you don't get to ask both at the same time.
Okay, well, I was just asking the meta-ethical question. You think the outcome of less crime, all that stuff. I mean, I would agree with that.
Okay, that's not meta-ethical is not outcome. Outcome and meta-ethical are separate things. So you have to ask the ontological statement of what makes something moral, or you have to ask the outcome question, which society is better. Those are two separate questions.
Okay, no, I'm just asking what makes something better. What exactly about less murder is better than more murder on your system? That's what I'm asking.
My view of morality is less imposition, involuntary imposition of will is good. Murder is an involuntary imposition of will, and so less murder is good.
Just because someone wills it, just because is it? I'm just saying how. Then that's just subjective. That's just your opinion.
No, that's not how subjective works. So simply saying a principle and then you saying it's subjective doesn't make it subjective. What do you think the word subjective and objective mean?
Well, a subjective means coming from not coming from an external stimuli. Objective means coming from an external stimuli.
No,
Yes.
no. Subjective means stance dependent. Objective means not stance dependent. It doesn't have anything to do with stimuli.
It
Stimuli is by
does.
definition subjective.
There's lots of definitions for it, but not coming from an external stimuli is one of them. And on your
No,
worldview,
it's
the ethic,
not. That
yes.
literally is incoherent.
How is
Like
that incoherent?
there's
You
no
look
such
up
thing
real
as
look up.
external stimuli. That's not how it like
Yes, there
that's
is.
stop talking. Stop talking. This is an epistemology question. Like all of your senses are subjective. Like if you see something, it's a subjective experience. There's not like the fact that it comes from you seeing the TV, which is potentially external, doesn't make it objective. That's dumb. It's still a subjective experience.
But
Objective.
there's an
What? Go ahead.
objective reality that exists outside of the mind. When you and I look at the
Yes.
number seven,
Agree.
seven exists outside of the mind.
I don't agree with that, but yes, there is an objective world.
How do you know that?
Well, no. Stay on one topic. So yes, there's an
Okay.
objective world. I agree.
Okay.
The definition of the word objective doesn't come from objective stimuli. That doesn't make sense. It's not
Okay.
one of the definitions. So objective
It
means
is.
no, it's not. I'm qualified in philosophy. You are not. You thought that micro and macro evolution was like the cutting edge scientific progress in biology when it's literally not taught in any academic field whatsoever.
Yes, it is. Look, I've got it right here. This is a PhD in microbiology from Harvard.
Written by a PhD is not cutting edge work in the field. Cutting edge work in the field is published academic papers.
They have
not
published academic papers. That's why they wrote a book.
No, that's not how books work. Anybody can publish a book. Academic peer-reviewed papers, micro and macro evolution, aren't in any of them. They're not accepted in any academic papers. No, they're not. Kid. This is literally pseudoscience. Macro and microevolution are the same thing. Anybody who understands biology understands those are the same thing. There's no difference. Like
Then
only people who are ignorant of biology think there's a difference.
So you have you've studied biology.
Yes, quite a bit.
Okay. What's your qualifications?
I've studied it. That's the qualification.
I've studied it too, and I'm looking to the PhDs. Can you name a single PhD that believes what you are teaching? I can name a bunch.
Richard Dawkins, Francis Doyle, just anyone in the field. Every single academic professor who publishes in the field.
I've got a bunch right here. I've got.
No, you don't.
I do. I have Nathaniel Jensen.
No. Just Google macro versus microevolution. It is a pseudoscience.
Do you want me to pull up? You can look
Nathaniel
up.
Jensen isn't academically published in the field anyway. He's a pseudoscientist. Nathaniel, I know that name. I've debated this with Standing for Truth. Nathaniel Jensen is a pseudoscientist. Jensen.
Okay, we're getting off track. We'll talk about young Earth creationism later. But when you say, okay, let's just talk about outcomes. When I say a better society, I think of one thing. When you say a better society, you think of one thing. Is there an objective better society, or is it both? Is it just your opinion? Is it just like you like Harry Potter and I like a different thing? Is it just opinion?
So there's, again, outcomes and moral meta-ethical theories are two separate things. So outcomes and meta-ethics different. If you want to talk about meta-ethics, yes, there is the view that there is a correct meta-ethics that describes morality. And what we do is we look at the evidence and we try to make a model that represents the evidence.
Well, what about I've heard that you know what the is-ought critique is. So how exactly from evidence do you get how the world ought to be? How do you get?
What does that have to do with so the evidence is moral intuition, moral progress, philosophical problems. The is-ought is one of them. Moral dilemmas, and looking at the patterns in those things is the evidence. Moral progress is the consistent change in patterns of moral intuitions across time. So this is like the patterns of evidence. What do you think is the patterns of evidence of morality?
Well, there is a revealed objective reality and objective ethics, but you're just saying everything is based on pattern. So
Yes,
what's
that's
to
how
stop
evidence works. Evidence is literally based on patterns. So what do you think the evidence of morality is?
that it was revealed to us that we have objective morality on your view?
Could you be more specific? So you think the Bible says so is evidence of morality or something?
It's one of them, yes.
What are
There's
the other
lots of
ones?
I mean, God wrote the law in our heart. I mean, there's lots of ways that we know ethical statements, and it isn't just just someone's opinion. It exists outside of us, just in the same way that logic
Okay,
and
how do we know? You say he
how
wrote
do
it
we
on our
know?
hearts. How do we gain access to that information?
Well, there's lots of ways through prayer, through studying, through referring to the church. But
Wait, what? So by prayer, I gain knowledge of morality. I'm not following the logic here. How does
isn't you
prayer?
isn't that what you just said? You said mental intuition. How is that any different than what you said? The difference is that we have an extra layer of proof because we have revelation. We have a God that revealed himself, and we have good reason to believe in objective
It's a good
ethics.
question. So the difference here is that when we use the term moral, it refers to certain kinds of sensations or thoughts and not other kinds. Like if I see a rock and I see it like knock your cup over, like we don't use the word moral to refer to that, right? We don't call that moral. But if we see somebody kill another person, we say, oh, that we call that moral. And so the words moral refer to certain kinds of things and not to other kinds of things. And so prayer seems to be of the rock kind, not of the murder kind. And so the word morality would not apply to those kinds of interactions. So I don't see how you can get moral knowledge from a morally inclined action. It seems like in order to gain knowledge of morality, you would have to gain evidence from the patterns to which moral language refers, and not to things that moral
So,
language does not
so
refer.
what do you mean by how do you get from evidence? What evidence are you talking about where you can get normative statements, where you can get morality? Can you
Well,
explain that?
no, those come from patterns in the evidence. The evidence is moral intuition, moral progress, moral dilemmas, and philosophical problems. And then we find patterns in that. We try to make a principle that describes those patterns. And then once we have a principle, then we can infer the grounding. And from the grounding, you get the normative stuff.
So no, because what about a
What?
pattern? What about the brute fact of an abortion? It doesn't tell you if it's right or wrong. The evidence doesn't tell you if it's right or wrong. Like explain
Yes,
that.
that's kind of what it does do. So the way a hypothesis works, you have a hypothesis, and the hypothesis doesn't tell you if it's right or wrong. You just say, this is my hypothesis. And then you say, once I have a hypothesis, you try to infer things in the future that you could discover patterns, testable
But
predictions,
you're
whatever. Wait. So, and then once you discover those, if you discover they are correct, that is evidence that your theory is the right one. You got the correct
how do
answer
you how do you discover if abortion is right or wrong?
by having patterns in morality and testing
You
if those
just keep saying
patterns
you just
infer
keep
predictions.
circulating and saying the same
Well,
thing over and
that's
over
not
again.
that's the
Yes, it
correct
is.
answer.
You keep saying patterns,
What?
patterns. Okay, an abortion happens. You have an hypothesis. Science cannot say is my hypothesis is an abortion is bad. That's
What?
not in the realm of science.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Like
How do you
literally Google moral naturalism. Yes, it is. Like moral naturalism is the position that moral statements are discovered or answered by science. It's like literally the position.
so
But
what about
so
so
it works the same way as any other hypothesis. You say,
no,
if
it
I
doesn't.
think this moral principle, whatever it is the correct moral principle, then I can infer that the pattern we see in moral progress will be this in the future and in the past,
Yeah.
etc. And then you can
So
look
you'd agree with me.
what
Human life has an inherent dignity. That's why we had to get rid of slavery. That's why we had to get rid of abortion. We need to keep
moral
furthering
value.
human rights.
Yes, moral
Yeah.
value.
So are you against abortion?
I think that killing any conscious thing ever is always immoral, but it can
Why?
be justified in some cases.
What about it being conscious gives its value on your system?
That's the conclusion of the evidence, as I see it.
It's as you see it, exactly. It's your subjective taste preference
Bro,
because
bro, bro. Everyone has to look at the evidence and then make a conclusion. That's literally how
I
evidence
know.
works.
Yeah, but
So
is
when
there
you
any
look at the
objective?
evidence, you conclude God. That's your subjective interpretation. Like, I don't
But
understand.
okay, but someone is objectively right. It's not just a
Yes,
bunch
that
of
is correct.
subjective
That's right.
views.
That's the point here, is having each person having a subjective experience isn't a critique of anything. One of them is still going to be right. So it's just saying, oh, that's your subjective experience. Like, yeah, and I could still be right. So saying it's
So
my
how
subjective
can you
experience
be
isn't an argument.
how can you be right on your how like what makes you
If
any more right
my
than me?
principle corresponds to reality, that would make me right.
Oh, what? Okay, but a human life having value, how does what do you mean? How does that correspond to reality
Well, there's
in
lots of
your
ways
world?
it could correspond to reality. It could correspond to a platonic object. It could correspond to a higher emergent property. It could correspond to a strongly emergent property. It
Okay,
could
but none of
correspond
that
to an
gives
a
you
priori
value.
abstract.
None of
Yes,
that
it
gives you
does.
value.
They all
No, it
literally
doesn't.
do.
No,
So,
it doesn't.
so here's a problem that most theists have. They don't understand what value is,
I
and
don't
what
think
grounds it.
atheists.
So, well, we do. That's again the consensus of experts in the field, atheists, moral
Well, then
realists.
why
But
do the
wait, wait,
majority of
wait,
the
wait. One thing at a time. So, um, in what way do you think God gives value that a platonic object would not give value?
well, because human life was made in the image of God, so it has an inherent dignity. But on your worldview, we're just
What
random.
that's no, no. You got to answer the question first. How does God give value that isn't given by a platonic object? Because on platonic objects, we have inherent value. So you
There's no
saying that
inherent value in the brute fact of an object.
that that would literally be what inherent means. If it's
Where is the
inherent,
value? If I look in a test tube, where is the value?
what what value would be like a higher order emergent property? So it's like
Where is it
health.
in
Well, no, no, so like
why
asking
what's
where,
health?
wait, we stop. So asking like where is the health in an
Yeah, where?
object? That isn't like you can like measure the health. It's this particle. Like no, it's a
Yeah.
system of a combination of things in the system. So like this is not a hard question. So, but again,
It,
you haven't answered the question. How do you think God gives value in a way that is better or more supported than a moral naturalist view of ethics?
well, because on your view, it is completely subjective. On
How
our
does it
view, it
again?
is revealed, it is objective, it came from God. And you're just saying, oh, this platonic form, it just says value. But people can, the
What
atheists, none of
does
them,
what is the academic definition of subjective versus objective morality?
there's lots
No, no.
of different.
When it comes to morality, normative stance independence, is that the objective academic definition of objective moral truths?
It depends which one you're looking at. There's lots of different definitions.
Stanford
So you're,
Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Oxford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, any academic textbook on morality, when the academic professionals talk about the subject, if they say objective, does that mean stance independent normative truth?
yes, from an external stimuli.
No.
Yes.
Where's I'm looking at the Stanford Encyclopedia right here. I'm not external stimuli exists nowhere in here. Like no one even gives a shit about that. It's not a word used in anywhere here.
In
It
any,
just means
okay.
normative, stance independent, maintains that normative reality, like descriptive reality, is never grounded in or made the case, even in part, by a stance toward it. Normative stance independence entails that normative facts are not made true by anyone's cognitive, I don't know what that means, or cognitive stance. This is the
Okay.
did you hear any external gibberish nonsense in there? No.
Yes, that's what it's saying, is that it is outside. It is by its very definition
There is
external.
no
You're just
external
getting caught up
stimuli.
on these little words while missing the entire meaning. There
What?
is no inherent value in in your worldview. There is no
Okay,
where do you get value from
that
evidence?
didn't exist. What do you like? Try to follow the line of thought here. I'm asking you the definition of academic philosophy of the thing we're talking about, and you're like, you add in this external thing that is
I
completely
didn't
not in that
no.
definition. Like external
Read,
stimuli was not in there. There's no stimuli. There's no one mentioned stimuli because stimuli is
it said
completely irrelevant.
stance independent means it's
Yes.
outside. Why is that?
Okay,
Wow.
so the fact that it exists outside is ontology.
Yes.
Stimuli is epistemology, how you know something. So whether or not you know something, like you could not know anything, like there could be zero stimuli and it could still be true, right? It'd still be objective. Like if we have no stimuli of something, it could still be objectively true,
Yes,
couldn't it?
because it's a stimuli that's from outside. If there was no humans, there would still be something.
If
There would still
there's
be stimuli.
no stimuli, zero stimuli,
What do you
can it
mean?
still be true?
That means nothing exists, which are you
No,
saying that?
what do you think the word stimuli means? Stimuli is like a sense
Y-
experience.
Okay, but that requires a human to sense it. But I'm saying that even if there was no humans, certain things would still exist outside of the human
Right.
mind.
So you don't need stimuli. Stimuli is just an irrelevant word here. It just does nothing. No one cares when it means objective stimuli not required. Stimuli is not required for objectivity. There is no reason to have that word in any definition of objective,
Yes,
because if it's objective,
because
it's
there has to
true.
be something occurring for something to be objective. It has to come from something outside. Otherwise, there's
Right.
nothing.
I mean, I agree. It does have to happen
Yeah.
objectively, but you don't have to stimulate it. It doesn't have to stimulate the senses. There's no stimuli required, right? You don't need stimuli. Stimuli is not a part of that definition, right? You don't need stimuli for it to be
It,
objective.
it has to come from some. Okay, if it's not coming.
Yes, I agree. It
Yeah.
has to come from somewhere. You do not need stimuli. Is that correct?
You need something, a
Yes, you
stimuli.
need something. You do not need stimuli. Stimuli is not what you need, but you do need something. It's not stimuli. Correct?
You
Like
need a
this,
stimuli.
if
Why?
you are
Why
so
can't it?
deluded you can't admit you were wrong on this, like this is such a problem. Stimuli is not required. Like just admit you're wrong, and so we can move forward. Like you do not need stimuli. You do not need a stimulus of
You
any
need
kind.
something. You need something. That's
Which
from
is,
it to
yes,
come
you need
from.
something which is
Exactly.
not a stimuli. You need
It's
objective
not
reality.
TJump's definition of stimuli. Yes, it is.
Okay. Are you
There we
using,
go. Okay,
what is your
so
definition? What is your definition of stimuli? Stimuli. Is it not sense experience? Because am I missing something?
No, it's just anything that exists outside. There is a phenomenon that exists outside. All right, let's move on.
What? No. Stimuli is like a thing that evokes a response from an organ or tissue or something. That's what
No,
stimuli
that's your
is.
specific definition of stimuli.
So what is your definition? I literally just asked you. Stop
I
telling me
already
what my
said
definition is.
any phenomenon that exists out. It's just something that exists in the world. A stimuli.
That's a very unique definition that I've
Okay,
never heard before.
we're just getting caught up on definitions. So
well, it's kind of important if what you're saying is gibberish using the academic definition. You made up your own definition.
No.
If you're using the definition of a word that is completely different, stop.
If you look up
If you're using
subjective
a
right
definition
now,
of a word that does not in any way represent what any academic uses the word to mean, that's going to make it sound like gibberish to someone who's using the word the way most academics use it, right? So
because the definition that you gave. Okay, look, we're wasting too much time on this. So
we're not wasting time on this.
Yes,
I'm proving you're wrong and ignorant on the topic. That's it's valuable. But more importantly, we need to clarify what you think you mean by these words. So I'm glad that you gave your definition. That makes more sense to me. If you think that stimuli means a
stimuli is something
that exists outside the mind.
Official definition of something of a stimuli is something that is something causing. Okay. There you go. Let's move on.
Something causing. That's a cause. Like no.
Only.
What? Okay. Something causing.
You can look up stimuli, stimulus, something causing or regarded.
A thing or event that evokes a specific functional reaction in an organ or tissue.
It does not say that. It says something causing or regarded as.
I literally just Googled the word.
I'm Googling it right now too. Are we looking at two different Googles? Come on. This is a waste of time.
No, I'll share my screen to pwn you more. It's a fun pwn.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can. Share your screen. I don't need to share audio. Share. Stimulus. Derp. Stimulus. A thing or event that evokes a specific functional reaction in organ or tissue. Oh God. What happened?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay. Can remove source. The share screen is the arrow button. There's like a mic, camera, arrow, a screen with an arrow in it. I think it's like the S key.
S key. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Can you see?
Yes.
Yes.
Zoom in. It's zoom in.
Yes.
Hold the control button and scroll up. Mouse scroll up. Okay.
Yes, but look at subjective, not caused by external stimuli. Right there on Google.
Wait, what? That's the definition of subjective or stimuli.
Yes.
What are we?
This is Google. This is the definition of subjective, not caused by external stimuli. No, we were just talking about. Look at something caused or regarded as causing.
I Googled what is the definition of stimulus. That's what we're going for. Stimulus.
Yeah, I'm on stimulus right now. Do you see it? Okay, but look at this is a waste of time. Let's move on. Come on. Look at it says right there. We know.
Okay. So definition of subjective on Stanford Encyclopedia
Dude,
is not that.
okay. Let's move on.
So
So
you're
you've
wrong
said
on
in the
both.
past. Okay, if you want to say that,
So so the reason we were bringing this up was that you said that atheist morality is subjective.
Yes.
And God-based morality is objective.
Yes.
So if atheist morality is based on a Platonic object or an unknown law of physics, those are things which are true externally to human opinion, which makes
Exactly.
them what?
They exist outside of us. They're objective. They're the truth. Okay. So my what I want to talk about was you
Wait a
have
minute.
said
You just admitted that it's objective. So if atheist
it's
models are those things, they're objective.
what? No. What? No. Okay. No. Because I mean, look at they can get objective truth claims about certain things about the world, like logic, but they can't be epistemically justified in it.
Okay, well let's address that as a
Let-
second claim here. But you agree we can have objective morality without a God, because if it's based
No.
on a law
No.
of
No.
go back to what you
Ethics is completely different, and even in using logic,
what
they're utilizing principles
go back
that can't be
go
justified on
back
their.
so whether it can be justified is a difference. That's epistemology, not ontology. We're talking about
I
ontology here.
know,
Can atheist models of objective morality be based in a thing which is independent of the mind, like a law of physics, a Platonic object? Like those things could ground morality, and if they did, they would be
you can't
objective.
get morality from physics. This isn't.
Yes, you can Google moral naturalism, but again,
Well, what about moral naturalism gives you morality from physics? Tell me how you get
the
from
essence of
physics.
morality, if it's grounded in a law, means that it's grounded in that law. So if the like
What?
whatever grounds morality is the ground of morality. So it's like saying if it's grounded in a Platonic object, morality is grounded
But
in a
there's
Platonic
nothing about a
object.
Platonic object that tells you if it's right or wrong. If I
Yes, it does.
if
That's
I should
kind
work
of
out, how does a Platonic object tell me if I should work out or not? If I
because
should.
whatever is right will correspond to the nature of the Platonic object. And so if it doesn't correspond to the nature of the object, it's literally the definition of immoral. Like this is not hard.
What?
Like the same thing, it's the same way God works. If something doesn't correspond to God's nature, it's immoral because it doesn't correspond to God's
But we
nature.
have knowledge because God has revealed. How do you have access to?
That's the epistemology
Event?
question. Again,
Yes.
ontology, all you need for an objective morality is something that grounds morality, which is independent of opinion, right? And Platonic objects, by
You
definition,
need
are
to be
independent of
you
opinion.
need epistemology too. You need to be justified
Yes,
in
I
your.
agree. I agree.
Yeah.
We do need epistemology, but the first point is ontology. If atheists ground morality in a thing that exists independent of opinion, that would be objective, wouldn't it?
But nothing about physics gives you morality. Nothing about
Wait,
biology gives.
stop. One topic at a time. If laws of physics ground morality in a way that we don't know yet, morality is a law of physics we don't know
Exactly.
yet. Wait,
There's no way for you to know.
wait. That would mean it's subjective, isn't it? That would be mind independent, stance independent.
If you were somehow able to have access to that and know that, but how would you know that? Nothing about a physical law.
So it would be objective. So even if we don't know it, that's still an atheist morality that would be objective, not
You
subjective.
don't know it. You just refuted yourself. How would you know it?
You don't need to know it for it to be potentially objective. So if it does exist, it is objective. So we have atheist models that would be objective if they're true. These would be atheist models that are objective. Now the question is, epistemologically, how do we get more
Yes.
evidence of it? That's a great question.
Mhm.
We look at the patterns of things that moral language refer to, and if there are patterns in these things to which moral language refer to, we can try to infer what grounds morality. So for example, imagine if we're on a boat. Imagine if we're on a boat and we want to know what direction the tide is going. And I look around, or I like say, you know what, it's easier for me to paddle in this direction. I seem to be going faster. That would be evidence towards like, well, maybe the tide is going this way. I could look at the other boats. I could say, oh, these boats are paddling faster in that direction, or they tend to go in that direction. I can use that as evidence to try to say, oh, the tide is going that way. I can look at other cultures throughout time. I can say, oh, look, these cultures paddled in this way. And that would be evidence for what direction the tide is going. I could make a consensus of all of the ships all throughout time and be like, look at all the patterns and the ways that ship traversing the ocean has improved over time, and that there's a consistent pattern in the way people travel, and we now have faster ways to go across the ocean. This would be great evidence for the tide, wouldn't it?
Okay, but that's not great evidence for morality. That's great evidence for physical laws, not ethics and morality. These are totally different things. And you're
so if
conflating
someone
them.
believes there's an objective morality which affects human minds in such a way that it causes a consistent change over time, like, the tide, and we can see patterns in these changes through cultures over time, it would be analogous to the tide in that we could look for evidence of this pattern affecting us by looking at cultures and their changes through time, couldn't we?
No, you're totally missing the question I'm asking. What's the point of even following the tide in the first place? There's no reason. You need to give a reason for, why are they following? Why ought they
What?
follow the tide? That
That's
is what I'm
irrelevant.
asking. And you just keep going off
No, no, no.
on
So
random.
morality is a truth claim. It's an is claim. Is there objective morality? Yes. Whether you ought to follow it or not is irrelevant to the truth of the matter.
No, but we're talking about the ought. I'm saying you can
No,
never
we're
get an
not.
ought.
We're not.
You
No,
can never
we're not.
tell
The
anyone
oughts,
what is more
oughts
ought.
come later. First is ises.
Yes.
So
And you can never
wait,
go
wait, wait,
from
wait, wait,
ought
wait,
to
wait.
is.
Yes,
It's a non sequitur.
it's the other way around. You can't get from an is to an ought, but you
That's what
can.
I said. You can't get from is to an ought.
You said you can't get from an ought to an is, but it's a separate topic. You can get from an ought to an is too, but that's a separate topic. The point here is that in order to know what morality is, you start with a factual claim. Morality is X. You don't need any oughts. You need 0 oughts for this.
You do need oughts.
You do not.
The brute fact of a truth is useless if you can't tell you
No,
if you
no,
ought to
no.
do it.
Just
Now,
try
let me
to use
see
your brain on
this
this one.
Let me
If
give you- let
something
me give
say
you- come on, I've let you talk so much. Come on. So if you stab someone, it causes them pain. Okay. What about that pain says we ought not to? It's just a non sequitur. It'll always just
right,
be
pain doesn't get to morality.
exactly.
Oughts. Pain doesn't
So
get to
how
oughts.
exactly the tide leads us somewhere? Okay. Why ought we
Yes.
follow the tide? You're saying it's a pattern. Okay.
I don't know. So if something is moral, I don't care if we ought to do it or not. It doesn't make a difference.
That's what I am
Is it
interested in.
moral? No. Just one step at a time. I'm trying to walk you through just basic philosophy here. So
Yes.
if I say morality is X and there's a pattern of morality, this is a truth claim. So if you don't correspond to that pattern, you are being immoral. Now, I have not said ought once. I don't need oughts at all.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
You
I don't.
said atheist ethics are better than Christian ethics.
Yes,
that you're
I
saying.
don't need oughts for anything
Yes,
I
you
said.
do.
You have to go back into my premises. Which one of my premises? If we say morality is X and it's a phenomenon and we discover it, why would I need an ought to make it true that this is morality?
Because if you have the truth, you think you have the truth. You can never tell someone that they ought to follow it. There's no reason to. There's no ought because you're not interested in the ought. But that's
stop. I don't
what
care.
I'm trying to
Does
discuss,
not
the ought.
having an ought make it false? So let's say that God's nature is morality, but there's no ought. He hasn't told us to do anything. Does that make it not morality?
He hasn't told you an ought. He's told.
Try to follow the analogy here. So say God has a nature, but he hasn't told us to do anything. Does that mean his nature is not morality because he hasn't told us to do anything yet?
No.
Right. So it's still morality. So
yes.
Whether they're ought, you don't need the ought. It's still morality whether he told us to do anything.
See, we're arguing two different things. You're arguing if there are objective ethics and morality, which we both agree on. But what I am saying is that you can never say ought statements on your worldview. I can. It's subjective for you to make any ought statements.
So try to follow. I'm getting to the oughts. They come next. First thing, is there objective morals? Yes. So from naturalism, it's the tide. There are objective morals. We're following the pattern.
You can't get an ought from that.
I didn't say you could. So stop jumping the gun. Wait patiently. Go step by step.
I've waited patiently. I've given you so much time to talk.
No, you haven't. Like you kept wasting time not addressing the question. Yes. So we have morality. We have a pattern. We've discovered morality. It's true that this is morality. And then you can say, if this is morality and you want to be moral, you ought to do it. There you go. It's called a hypothetical imperative.
There's no reason to do that on your worldview. Why? Just because it exists.
If you want to be moral, you ought to be moral.
Exactly. It's your opinion. If you want to, you can. There's no reason. There's no reason to.
That's correct.
Even if you were right, there's no reason to. There's no reason to do anything because there is
if
no
you want
ought
to, that's a reason. That's literally a reason. So the ought's there.
Yeah, that's like I like pizza. I like pizza. That's literally your argument.
Great,
I like pizza.
You haven't refuted the argument here. So I have objective morality. It's true that this is moral. I do. Literally prove that. You've admitted that.
Yes. No, I'm saying that it's possible.
Okay, let me try to break this down for you. Why do you think you need an ought to have objective morality? Can you have objective morality without an ought?
Because yes, but it is useless.
Okay, so dumbass,
And you can
if
never
I can
have
have, stop
you can never
talking,
have
I'm gonna
access
mute your
to it.
dumbass. You just admitted I can have objective morality without an ought, dumbass. So
No,
you admitted I can have objective
you can
morality in
never be
atheism.
epistemically
I don't
justified.
give a
It's
shit.
arbitrary.
That's not the question, dumbass.
That's the
If I
question I'm
have
asking.
objective morality, I have objective morality. Problem solved. Whether or not I have an ought or how I think
You can
oughts
never
relate.
tell
Shut
anyone they
up.
ought to do
Shut
it.
up. If whether or not I have an ought or how I think it relates is irrelevant because you've already admitted I have objective morality. That's all I need.
Not you. No, I'm saying it's possible because objective morality does exist, but on your worldview, you would never have access to it or know it because you just admitted
Idiot.
you're
If
not
it's the
interested in the
tide,
art.
if it's a thing I'm measuring, then I have access to it. If there's a pattern in reality to which
Nothing about the
morality
patterns gives you
responds,
an ought.
yes, again, you don't need an ought. You've already admitted that, dumbass. There's no consistency to your
Oh
argument.
my
You've
gosh.
admitted you don't need an ought for morality.
So you can
I
never
have morality. I have access to morality. I
you
don't
can
care
never
if I need an ought.
but okay, if we're debating
Oughts don't make things true. You don't need oughts. I have morality. You've lost.
but there's you can never be just I never said that. I said objective morality exists but
Yes.
you can never be justified in any of
Yes,
your
I
knowledge
can.
claims about morality. A
Yes, I can.
tide does not tell you that you ought to follow the
Wait,
tide.
idiot. Oh my God. If you admit you can have morality without oughts, and I have patterns in reality to which that morality
So,
refers, I have access to it. Your oughts don't make it not justified. I now have a
um,
justification for
no,
the morality. I have the
that's not what I
morality. I have a
said. That's not what I
justification.
said.
You don't need oughts. There's no
That's not
oughts
what I
in
said.
this.
I said objective morality exists, and whatever
Yes.
thing you come up with is subjective, it's arbitrary, it's ad hoc. You've lost the debate at that point. You just said there's no oughts. Why
You
ought
admitted it
I
was
listen to
objective.
you?
Wait, again, you're so stupid. You're not even
So
comprehending your own
what?
argument.
So I,
You admit
so
you
I
can have
wait.
morality.
Let me say
You
something.
admit you can have morality. You
No,
admit that
I said morality exists, obviously, because there is objective.
yes,
But I say you can never have
and
access.
if
You
I
can never
can
justify your knowledge.
stop talking, I'm just going to mute you. You admitted we can have morality. It can be objective, potentially. If it's a law of physics, it's independent of the mind, it's potentially objective. And if this thing causes a particular set of actions in humans, like the tide would cause particular actions in boats, then we have access to it. So now morality is objective. We have access to it. We can measure it. We can make predictions off of it. And I don't need any oughts for that. I have
So
objective
let me
morality. I have access to it. I don't need oughts for that. Your
no.
argument that I
So let,
need oughts, you would have to make a justification of why you would need an ought to either have an objective morality or to have access to an objective morality. Otherwise, the oughts don't matter to your
pattern
argument.
patterns don't tell you what is you can never get it, like you can come to false conclusions just based on patterns. Like it's a pattern that calling someone stupid is wrong, yet you keep calling me stupid. So I mean, yeah. So
That's
we
not how
see
a
the
pattern
pattern.
works. The
Yes,
fact
yes,
that
it is.
patterns
Yes,
can be wrong,
humans have all seen that calling people
the
stupid,
fact that
and when they're
patterns
losing an
can
argument,
be
they call people
wrong,
names because
stop
you're a
talking,
grown adult.
I muted you. The fact that patterns can be wrong doesn't make them not evidence. Patterns are still evidence, even though they can be wrong.
But wouldn't you say you could come to false conclusions just blindly following a pattern? There's a pattern that nearly every civilization was religious. Is that pattern right or wrong? Every civilization was religious. So the
Yes.
pattern must be true. There you go. I just disproved you.
No. So again, your argument is the pattern could be wrong, therefore it's not evidence. That's wrong.
I'm saying you wouldn't have access just because there's a pattern. Okay. Can I just ask you a hypothetical? I want to ask you a hypothetical. Okay. So I've heard in the past that you're a utilitarian, which is a moral system. Well, you're based on pragmatic and what is good, right?
No,
So okay, then what are you?
I have my own model of morality. It's kind of utopian model. It's not a utilitarian model.
Utopian. So okay, but would you agree with the definition though that we need to maximize the good for the most amount of people? Is that your definition?
No.
Then
that would be utilitarianism.
Okay. So what? How is your morality different?
My morality says that any involuntary imposition of will is immoral, not to maximize involuntary imposition of will, or maximizations are moral. It's any involuntary imposition of will is immoral. So utilitarianism says that you should maximize something in such that, like if you have an option of killing 5 people to save 10, you should kill the 5, and that's moral. My model says killing anyone ever for any reason is always going to be immoral, even if it has a positive outcome of saving X number of more people. So utilitarianism is pragmatic, like you said, where it's stating that a maximization of a greater number of people would be moral, even if there's a consequence to some minimum number, whereas mine says any minimum number of damage is still going to be immoral.
So you and the other atheists, they say the same thing. Oh, yeah, our patterns say this. So why is your system any different than any other atheist? Because some of them would say that it's better to, you know, kill those 5 people or whatever to maximize the good. And they're saying, oh yeah, it's because of the Platonic forms. The physics says that this is morality. So how is yours any different? Because you have a minority position. Not most atheist philosophers do not have your position.
Well, obviously, but that's most atheist philosophers aren't utilitarian. So the fact that people have different positions,
No,
one
I
is going to
know.
be better if it has
What
more
makes yours
corresponds
better?
to reality.
What makes yours better? Because you're all saying, "Oh yeah,
I
the
think
physics
I
just
think
says this."
mine better corresponds to the patterns and the evidence. That's what makes it better.
Better. Well, I just say that my system better corresponds to reality. I mean,
That would
it's
make
just
it better. Yes.
yeah. So my system's better because I say so. That's what you're saying.
No. So if it better corresponds to the evidence, that's something that we can measure or test in some way. How does
Yeah.
yours better
So
correspond to the evidence?
So we can look at Pew Research and see that people who live a Christian lifestyle, they're happier, they're more involved in the community, they vote more, they have more kids, they suffer from depression less, they suffer from drug use. Therefore, Christianity ethics are better.
Or they actually have more drug use and
No.
that's actually, yeah, they do.
Have
Like,
you looked at the
did
Pew
not know that.
Research?
I have.
Okay.
Like, have you? Because the
Yes.
data shows that it's only the case that religious people are more socially engaged in communities or countries that are majority religious, and communities or countries that are majority atheist. The atheists are actually more socially engaged, and the religious people are more depressed because it has to do with social cohesion. These tests have been verified many times and show that
No. Then
even
why
though wait. So the statistics that you brought up about like depression, it's true in religious majority countries, not true in
okay.
secular majority countries, but the crime statistics are true in both. So in both religious and non-religious countries, the religious people are the majority of the criminals, are disproportionately criminal, are disproportionately get divorces, disproportionately have
What
psychological problems, are
No,
disproportionately
atheists have a higher divorce rate than couples that pray together.
no, they
Couples who pray
don't.
together have a less than 1% divorce rate.
Pray together.
Yeah.
That's no. So
Pray
we're
together
religious.
daily.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a different statistic. Religious is actually higher. So religious people who get divorces are higher. Religious people with teen pregnancies are higher. Religious people with lower education is higher. Religious people lower IQs, they just have a lower IQ. So I don't look for a specific. Do people pray together on a daily basis? That's a very
Well, I mean,
cherry picked example.
that's a metric of how religious people. I mean, if they're actually religious, they pray together daily, and those
No,
couples have.
that's just
Yes.
that's your subjective definition of what you think being truly religious is. That's a no
Would
true
it
Scotsman fallacy. So, no,
if they
because
don't go to if they don't? There are
like
certain
many religions don't
characteristics of
entail
religious people.
prayer. Many religions don't entail prayer every day. That's
Well,
not
I'm not saying religion in general. I'm saying Christianity.
okay. Well, even in Christianity, that wouldn't be true. So most Christians don't pray every day, and
Well,
whether
yeah,
or not you call
that's
them
why I
true
brought up the
Christians,
couples who pray.
that's why it's no true Scotsman fallacy. So if we're looking at the
Yes, I
data
know.
of religious people versus non-religious people, the crime rate is lower in non-religious people. The divorce rate is lower in non-religious people. If you want to cherry pick some very hyper-specific data point that they want to pray together every day or something, we could pick a different. We'd have to pick an equally hyper-specific data point about social cohesion among atheists. So, like, obviously, couples who have some kind of collective hobby that they do together every day are going to be less likely to get divorces. And so we'd
Yeah.
have to pick some hyper specific thing that atheists do together every day. And if we measured the people who do that thing every day together, they're probably going to have equally lower divorce rates
But there's
than,
not really a unique characteristic like that there is
yes,
from
there is. There's
Christianity.
hobbies like
Yeah.
reading books
They
together or going bowling
it's not
together.
the same
Those are the
thing as
same.
no,
Yes, they're
praying together.
literally
No.
psychologically the same thing.
No, no, they
Like,
aren't.
literally
Praying to a
based
god
on
is the same as reading a book. Oh, yeah, great argument.
yes. Yes. There are many neurological studies that show hobbies such as praying to a god are essentially reflecting on your own intuition in your own brain, which is no different from introspection or other kinds of hobbies that involve imaginary kinds of deliberation. So, yes, those are psychologically the same thing. But the point here is that if you want to cherry pick a specific kind of Christians who have a very
They're
tight-knit
faithful.
hobby. Well, no,
They're,
no, they have a
yes,
tight-knit. The faithful part is here is irrelevant. The part here that
it is.
matters is the part that they're doing something with their partner every day, which is very important to them. And if you pick a property among atheists where they are doing something with their partner every day that's really important to them, they're going to have lower divorce rates than partners that don't do
But
things
but
together
do
that are
you
really
think
important to them.
but do you think atheists have that type of hobby? I'm saying that praying together is something
Yes, we
that all
literally that
no.
we've done those studies.
Oh,
Yes. Like this is a study that's very common. Do atheists have community building exercises and hobbies that are equivalent to religious ones? The answer is yes.
no,
There have
there's no
been
community
dozens of
centers.
studies on that. Yes, there are. Like there are
No,
literally
you go to an
atheist
atheist community
churches.
center?
No, what does that have to do with
I
atheist communities?
Because you can look at Pew Research and
Wait,
see
wait,
that
wait, wait.
most
Again,
atheists
again,
are
your
not
argument
going
was is
somewhere
your
to.
argument was that couples pray together. That's not going to a community center. Like you don't even go to church every day.
It's one of many examples of
Right, right.
it.
So,
It
in order to
presupposes
make
it being a
wait, wait,
Christian that you go
look
to the
how
community center.
evidence works. You have to make a comparative analysis between two groups. So, if you pick one particular statistic of one group, like for example, that they pray together every night, you would need a comparative, something that's equivalent on the other side. Going to a community center every day together is not comparative to
I
praying
know,
together
I
every
know.
day.
I
So,
never
if
said
you
they were
want to,
comparative. I'm saying that I was
so
bringing it up
you
as
need to
another
pick
example.
something that is comparative. So stick with your original example. What is something comparative to praying together every day? It would be doing a hobby together every day in a secular community. Do atheists have that? Yes. Yes, they do have that. Yes, they do have community building exercises between couples that they do every day that is equivalent to two Christian people praying every day together. Yes, we do have that. We do have studies on this. Yes.
It doesn't happen at the same frequency, just like that's why I brought
Yes,
up the
it
second
does. Yes, it literally does.
it literally does.
Yes.
Okay.
Couples have hobbies that they shared interest with, and the rate that they share that interest on a daily basis is approximately the same
Okay. And they have studies about that on divorce?
on divorce. No, I don't think anybody's
Because
selectively chosen do couples do a particular hobby every day and how that impacts divorce on a secular group. I've
well,
never seen that study.
there's a lot of studies on family and like what leads to a good family, and what we have seen that the things traditionally associated with a Christian lifestyle lead to lower divorce rates. One of the things I brought up was, praying together daily, going to church together, reading the Bible, all of this stuff, and maybe you
Oh,
can
for
find
divorce rates, we have that
comparative.
if couples do their hobbies together on a regular basis, that does lower divorce rates, whether it's prayer or bowling.
Okay. But I'm just saying, in general, the hobbies associated with Christianity are not practiced at the same frequency. Like, even if you do believe that we evolved, wouldn't you agree that we evolved to be religious? Isn't that a pattern that you see in the
Yes,
world? So
sort
why
of.
would you get rid of that if we evolved for this and it has helped our survival? And we can look at atheist birth rates, and they have the lowest birth rates. Japan is having
Wait,
more.
what is your? I'm not following your argument here. So I didn't say anything about getting rid of religion. I said it wasn't as good. So if we're trying to measure outcomes of a society, secular nations are better. But I didn't say we'd get rid of religion. Yeah, religion is a lot better than a lot of other options. I think it's worse than secularism, but it is better than other things. Like I don't understand how you got to this statement.
Well, you're an atheist trying
Yep.
to debate Christians, trying to
Yep.
make people not religious. So it kind of
No.
seems like
No.
you're
My
not.
my goal is nothing to do with converting people. My goal is comparing epistemologies and moralities. I don't care what people believe. Like if I converted everybody, I lose my job, so that would be against my interests.
What do you mean? That would be beneficial to you. You'd have more people paying into you.
I
How?
debate Christians. If there are no Christians, I have no one to debate.
No, but still, you would debate people that have different views, and they would follow you. Like they're like, "Oh, this guy's really smart." They would follow him. It's not like, "Oh, he won in a debate. Now I'm never going to talk to him again." They'd probably still listen to you.
What? The, I have no goal of changing Christian minds. My goal is to make money by debating them. Like I don't care if I change people's minds. That was never my
So
goal.
I guess that goes back to the question: is you don't really tell anyone what they should do. You don't make any odd statements.
Nope.
You're not really interested in that.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Well,
Because you
it
don't
just
need it. Like, why do you keep thinking that you need that to have morality? You haven't made an argument for that.
because everyone makes odd statements and they can't be epistemically justified. That is my whole point. Is that it's
Why do you
inconsistent.
need to have that for morality? What is your
No,
argument that you
I'm
need
not.
to have
That's
that?
not what I'm saying. I'm saying that that people make ethical claims. They make odd statements, and they need to be justified in it. Yeah, I'm not saying, oh, you can't make an ought statement, therefore there's no objective morality. I'm saying that everyone makes ought statements. It
I
sounds
don't
like
make ought
okay.
statements.
So you don't. So I shouldn't listen to you.
If you don't want to, I don't care. But
So
what I'm still not following your argument here. So my argument is that atheist morality is better because it corresponds to reality better. And you say that, well, you don't have ought statements. And I'm not following how that makes it worse.
well, no, because I was saying that you can't have access to that, and even if it was true, which again you wouldn't have access, you wouldn't be able to know that you can never make ought statements, and you've agreed that you can't make ought statements.
Wait,
But
so the
in
first
the
thing is
whole,
access. If morality is literally demonstrable, if we can observe the effects on the brain, we have access. But what the second part is the part I'm asking about is
what about the
what
brain tells you morality?
remember the tide analogy? Like if morality is
I
objective
know.
and it affects us, and if it affects us in a pattern, we can see that pattern
But
expressed through
nothing can tell you
cultures.
that we like. Let's say TJ's the
Wait,
captain
wait,
of
wait,
the
wait.
of
Again,
the ship.
the ought statement is a separate, completely unrelated question here. So
I
if
know,
we
but
have
that's the question.
access,
See, I guess
wait.
I
So,
understand what you
if I
mean.
have morality and I have access to morality through observations, why do I need the oughts? Why do I need the ought thing? You haven't shown
Okay,
why
well,
we need
one,
this.
you don't have access because let's say you're the captain
If
of the ship.
morality is a force and the
Yeah.
force affects people and we can watch how it affects people, does that give us access to morality?
How do you know that that's morality?
Wait,
The
wait, wait,
fact that it's happening.
wait.
You don't know what
No, no, no,
morality
no, 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 no.
is.
Just assume, for the sake of an argument, if morality is objective, it's a force, and it affects people, and we watch those effects and we can see the pattern, would that give us access to morality?
No, because you're just seeing a pattern and it would just be your opinion. Like we see this pattern, therefore
Okay, if the
it's the
pattern
same
is
thing as the brain. Like
objectively caused by a moral law of physics, and we see that pattern,
there are no
like
moral laws of physics.
that's you begging the question. So this is just trying to get you to understand, would you have access if morality was a law of physics and it affected things and you could see the effect? Yes, like gravity. If gravity affects things and we can see the effect, we have access to gravity, right? We see gravity does things, it moves stuff, and we see the movement. We can then understand gravity by watching the movement. So if the moral law of physics affects the psychology of people in a particular way and we can see that, we would have access to the law of physics of morality. Like
But
access just means
this
like
is all
we
based
can
on a false belief that gravity is the same thing as morality. And that's where
no, no, no,
that's
no,
not
no. This has nothing to do with the belief here. This is just basic
no,
entailment.
it does.
Would you have access to morality if it affected things in reality to cause a pattern here? That's the question.
But morality doesn't affect anything. It doesn't like it's not like gravity where you can see and test it. It's not scientific. It's not
So if it didn't affect anything, you're right, we wouldn't have access to it. But if it does affect something,
but it doesn't affect
wait,
anything.
wait, wait, wait. Stop begging the question. You're begging the question. If it does affect something and we can see that effect, would that mean we have access to it?
How would you see an effect of morality? You're saying the brain, my brain matter. How does that get you
It
morality?
doesn't matter how you see it.
It
If it
does.
causes an effect and we see it in whatever way that is, do we by definition have access to morality now? So if morality exists and it causes a pattern in whatever way, who cares why, and we can see it in whatever way, who cares why, does that mean we have access to morality now?
I could think of a perfect example. Christ coming, all these prophecies. Yes, the effects are made known, so we have knowledge of that. There we go. That's a perfect example of how we would have knowledge of ethics. Is God becoming incarnate and explaining revelation?
So the question
That's
was,
the only way.
if morality is like a law of physics and it causes effects in reality and we can see and measure those effects, would that mean we have access to morality?
It's not like a law of
I
physics. You're
don't I
asking
don't
me.
care what you think. This is not about what you
Wait,
think,
wait.
what morality is. This is a question like,
All the
if
skeptics, none of them said that physics and morality are the same.
I didn't either. This
Yes,
is
you
a
did.
basic
You
analogy. This
did.
is an analogy. If
It's an
it is
analogy
the
that does
case,
not work. Gravity is
no,
not the same as ethics.
no. You, God, I don't like. Do you not know how analogies work? Like
I
analogies are
do,
a
but
thought
this
experiment.
analogy
What is a
cannot
thought
work.
experiment? What is a
Yes,
thought experiment?
it's a hypothetical. It's yeah, it's but this this
Yes, it's a
hypothetical.
hypothetical. Right, correct. It's a hypothetical to isolate a variable. That's what a thought experiment does. So the thought experiment is if it is the case. So we're assuming it's already true. If we know if it is just a fact of the universe, morality is a law of physics, and it affected things, and we could see it, would that mean in this hypothetical universe we would have access to morality.
By effect, if you mean like God becoming incarnate and we have revelation, where it's
Morality
very
is a law of
clear.
physics, no gods.
It's not.
No, again, this is hypotheticals. Remember,
I know,
try to do hypotheticals.
but
Hypothetical universe, it doesn't have to exist. It's a hypothetical universe that does not exist. It's in our imagination. In our imagination land, there is a universe with a law of physics, and the law of physics is morality. And in this universe, hypothetical, non-real universe, the people can see the effects of this law of physics just like people can see the effects of gravity. In this hypothetical universe, would the people have access to morality?
we were bringing up a fairy tale that
Yes, it's a hypothetical. That's
you
what
admitted that
hypotheticals
it's a
mean.
fantasy.
That's what hypotheticals mean.
I mean, so how would you like how would you measure it in this hypothetical universe?
It wouldn't make a difference in
No,
whatever
no,
way
no, no.
you want.
I'm interested. So, like, let's
No,
say
no, no.
this.
Oh my god. Oh my god. So the question here is like, would you have access?
I
And
understand.
what
You're
does
saying
would you have
no, no.
access mean? What does have access to something
If you
mean?
could have knowledge of it. Okay. So
Yes.
I no, I understand what you're meaning. You're saying, let's think of this hypothetical universe where just like we can study the law of physics, we can measure it, we can know it's real.
Right.
Morality was the same way. We could measure it
Right.
and we could
And we
know
would have
that it was real.
if that was the case, we'd have access to it, right? We'd be able to access it
Yes,
if it was the case.
and yes, in this
Thank you.
in
Thank you.
this
That's
fantasy.
all I wanted. That's
I know,
yes,
but
it's a
it's not
hypothetical. It's
like
a
that. But
hypothetical.
yes,
Because it's a hypothetical. If it's the case that morality is like this, and if it's the case morality causes an effect we can see, we would have access to it. And my entire model is that morality is a law like that, which does have an effect on people, which we can see in moral progress throughout time. That's my hypothesis. And
mhm.
so if that is the case, which hypothetically we don't know, that would mean we would have access to morality.
But we don't live in that universe.
Well,
Physics does
that's
not.
your position. But again, this is
Yeah.
just to show that I have a model of atheism that if it's true, objective morality, we have it and we have access to it. We have both of those things.
But nothing about measuring. You were saying that if gravity was, if morality was like gravity in this fantasy universe, but in this universe, morality is not like gravity.
I think it
There's no
is.
physical. No,
What is your
there's
evidence that it's not like gravity?
there's no we can physically test and repeat and see what is if physics work. You know, we have our hypothesis.
Yes,
We
we
can
can.
keep we can.
We can see
It's
patterns in
objective.
moral progress. So we can see that.
No, because totally different societies will come to different conclusions. It's all based on culture. Like
No,
you're like yes, because you an
no.
atheist are going to have different morality than a Chinese atheist.
The
But
fact
you
that
guys are
there
both
are
operating on the same assumption that oh, if we just
no.
it's just like physics. It's
No, no, no,
not
no.
just
So
like
like
physics.
the fact that there are, remember my tide analogy, there's a bunch of different ships and a bunch of different ships are going in different directions. They're not all going in the same direction. If they would, that'd be easy. But there's a pattern. If we look for an overall overarching pattern of all the ships, we can say, oh, look, there's an objective pattern to the tide, even though some ships are going in different directions. So the fact that some ships are going in different directions does not
But
mean
they're
it's
going in
not
completely
evidence of the tide.
different directions. And just okay,
Yes.
everyone could be wrong. The tide, just a tide.
Yes,
I'm
it's
saying the
possible.
fact that the tide is happening, maybe we're all meant to just like end all humanity. You wouldn't know because you're just following the tide. You're not really thinking outside of the tide. You're just following the tide. That's all you're doing.
So if the tide objectively exists and causes an objective pattern, and I say to know this pattern, I should follow the patterns in the ships, that would be evidence that the tide is going in that direction. So if
But is it
morality is
going in the
objective,
right direction? That's what I'm asking.
wait. If morality is an objective thing and it causes us to go in a specific pattern, and I can see this pattern, that would be evidence of morality. So that's that's
But I'm
all
asking,
access. We have
but I know,
access to it.
but I'm asking if it's better if it's better to follow the tide. How do you know you're following the right tide?
That's
Maybe
like
those.
asking, how is God moral? It's like if the definition of moral in this context is it is the good. So
So
asking
wait,
why is
but
moral
wait,
the good?
but it seems like you're saying whatever the tide is, like there's this general progress, and you are measuring it, and that is the good. That is objective by its very definition. You're saying whatever the tide is, whatever social consensus is, then that is morality.
So I think whatever is the essence of goodness is causing this pattern. Therefore, this pattern is directionally pointed towards the goodness.
And what is the goodness? How do you know it's not leading? Maybe the entire tide is leading toward the badness. How would you know that? Because you're just
Um,
blindly following the
with
tide.
evidence. So we'd say that
What?
if the patterns of morality follow this pattern, we can make novel predictions and get the patterns correct. That is evidence of our hypothesis. Now, it's not 100%. You could be wrong. You could always be wrong, but that's not evidence that you are wrong. So you can still have evidence for your conclusion, even though you could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying you have no idea if you're on the right or the wrong path because you're just following the
No,
tide.
the fact that you
Yes.
could be wrong doesn't mean you don't have evidence. You can have probabilities. You have like
No, but
90%
I'm saying
probability,
you
and you
have
can still
no
be wrong.
access. You're saying that the definition of goodness is whatever the tide is following. But I'm saying, how do you know that it's actually leading to the good? Because I'm saying maybe this tide in humanity is all
Okay.
leading to this bad thing, and you would
Yes.
never know.
Again, you could be wrong. The fact you can be wrong, I admit, does not mean you're not justified in
It's
believing
not
you're
just
right.
you can be wrong. You have no reason to even believe that you're
Yes,
leading
you
towards
do.
the
So
good.
if I think, for example, let's say I believe God exists, and if God exists, I make a prediction that in 5 minutes he's going to give me a gold brick. I'm going to pray for a gold brick, it appears. Now, say a gold brick appears in front of me. That would be evidence of God. Now, it could just be leprechauns or aliens playing a trick on me, but I'm still
Mhm.
justified in believing, yes, God did this because my hypothesis was God exists, and I pray to a God, and a gold brick appears, and that gave me knowledge of the future I didn't have yet. And if I got that right, that would be evidence of God, even though I could be wrong, even though it could just be aliens or a delusion or something. That would still be evidence. And the same thing applies to morality. So even though I could be wrong that this tide is going a different direction, if I think objective morality causes this tide, and if it causes this tide, I will see this pattern of moral progress, and I discover the pattern. That is evidence my model is correct, just like seeing the gold brick is evidence of God. The fact I could be wrong doesn't matter.
Okay. I understand your view. You're saying that this tide, this effect that we're measuring is leading towards some sort of good. That is your definition of good. And I guess that's where we're just going to fundamentally disagree is because
So what is
God is goodness and on my view, and then consensus or the tide is goodness on your. So I understand that. I think
no?
we've talked. I think we should move on to young earth creationism, but I
Well,
understand your
I
view.
do want to move on to your evidence. So my evidence is I look for patterns in the phenomenon to which moral language refer. So moral intuition, moral progress, moral dilemmas, etc. And if I see patterns in that, I think this is good evidence of what the essence of morality is. And I want to know, what do you think the evidence that tells us what the essence of morality is? What evidence are you looking at that gives us information that is better than looking at the patterns in the things to which moral language refer?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I would just say the pattern doesn't lead anywhere. Just pattern, it doesn't lead you to anything.
Pattern
But
would
I
just
would say
mean
on
any.
my worldview, on my worldview. So basically, God, He has all these prophecies. He has revealed Himself in history. Christianity is a very historic religion. He has came. He has revealed the law. So we have a very clear idea of what the law is. And if there's any uncertainty, He set up the church, the Orthodox Church, to guide us. We are rooted in prayer. We are rooted in the church fathers, tradition, scripture, all of these things that are checks and balances that we know that we are following the good, that we are following God. We have epistemic certainty because God has revealed Himself. He's made it honest. Versus in my view, you're just following a tide that you don't know if it's leading you anywhere good. It's just a pattern that you happen to see. And I don't think you can get morality from that. And that's where we disagree.
So my interpretation of that would be like, if you remember my tide analogy, like if I start with, I'm trying to figure out what the direction of the tide is, and I start with myself, and that's not great evidence. It's whatever personal experience. But then I look to my culture, like look at the ships around me and see what direction they're going. It seems like what you're doing is you're taking a particular culture, which is just a particular set of ships of the Christian culture, the Christian identity, and saying which direction are they going in the tide, and you're basing the direction of the tide based off of that one culture. Whereas I'm basing it off of the consensus of all the cultures and the pattern of all the
Well,
cultures. And so it
I
seems
mean,
like we're using the same thing. Mine just seems a little bit better.
well, again, better. There is like better is going. It's going to mean different things to me and you. So I think that's the point where we disagree. Is we're both kind of presupposing some knowledge of the better of the worse, and we're following different ships. I think we can be epistemically justified in our ought statements, which are very important. Like the fact that objective morality, truth does exist. You need to have access to it, and I think we need to have ought statements. Otherwise, everyone is inconsistent because everyone makes ought statements. But I understand what you mean, but it just seems inconsistent.
Well, okay, so how does, from my perspective, a God-based morality is by definition stance dependent, so it would be by definition subjective. How
Well,
does a God ground morality? Because I don't think it can. Doesn't seem to make sense to me, the idea that God grounds morality at all.
Well, you would agree that like logic and math, all of these things are objective, and morality is objective. So it exists somewhere. It exists in the divine mind, and ethics is that same way. Anything ethics is God.
Well, that
God
would
is
that would
goodness.
be So I agree, math and logic and morality are objective, but if
Mhm.
there exists in a mind, then they would not be objective. They would be subjective.
No, a mind is just an analogy. There's nothing like God. God is totally uncreated. It's just an easy way for us to understand it. But basically, it exists outside of us. It exists like the chemicals in my brain, the chemicals in your brain. We both agree that there is some objective morality and truth. I guess the disagreement is how we have access to that, and that how we make ought statements from that. That's where we would disagree.
Well, I'm disagreeing on it. To me, it doesn't seem to make sense to think morality could be grounded in a being of any kind, because that would make it
God's not a being. He's uncreated.
being means anything that exists in philosophy. So any existing thing is a being. And so
Well,
it's
then,
to
wait. But then on your worldview, you have to ground it in something, a being also. So,
yes, but I'm specifically
so
in being
what?
as in conscious. I'm saying conscious being in yours kind. It's kind of like a person. What would that does that work for you? Calling God a person of some kind?
I mean, he's a person in one way. We believe in the Trinity.
Right. So he has a mind of some kind,
I mean, one
intentions,
of it,
desires,
there's a
something.
hypostatic union in Jesus Christ, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So
there's nothing like God. But God also is the Father, which is, yeah. So the point is that it's stance independent. We just disagree
well,
about
that's the part I'm not understanding. How can it be based in a conscious mind of some kind and be
it.
stance
It
independent?
Well, you're thinking that it's like a human mind, and God is unlike anything in the world. I'm just giving you an analogy to understand, to easily understand it.
Well, I'm trying to understand. Like, if I gave you an analogy of a round square, you'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, literally, round is the opposite of square. And so, if you're saying that you
Well,
have a mind who is a consciousness of some kind, but saying that's stance independent, those are like a round square. That does not make sense to say that those two can be the same.
Well, again, that's not a perfect analogy to the square. I'm just giving the mind as something easy to understand. There is nothing like God. I mean, we have a finite human mind. I can't perfectly explain it with analogies because there's nothing like it in the created world. It's totally uncreated.
Well,
So, yeah, are you ready?
so
You want to move on to young Earth?
not little. I want to go a little bit further into this. To me, it seems like if there is a morality and it's dependent on the stance of a mind or a consciousness in any way. Doesn't need it's even analogous to a human mind in any way. If it's contingent on a stance, it is stance dependent. That means it's literally not objective. So a law of physics would be objective because it's not up to a mind. No mind gets to set the laws of physics. They're totally independent of any mind, which makes them stance independent. They're
Yeah.
objective. And
Well,
so if
no,
I
that's
think
what I agree.
morality,
They're stance independent. I'm just giving you an analogy, an easy way to understand it. Because I mean, you would agree that these things exist outside. I was just giving the mind as an example of how to understand it. It's
well,
not.
if it exists in a mind or due to a
No,
mind of some kind, then that would make it
I
subjective.
okay. Okay. It doesn't exist in a mind. It's like you just said. It exists. It's stance independent.
Okay, so if it
I
stands
was just
independent, that
giving you an
means it.
easy way to understand it.
Okay, so like that would mean that there's no say. God gets no say in the morality. That would be essentially what that would
Well,
mean.
it's very like God is logic, God is goodness, God is ethics, God is the very thing itself. It's just I'm trying to understand, trying to explain something that's totally uncreated
Well,
and totally unlike anything in the
I didn't
created
say he was
world.
created. Whether he's created or
Yeah.
not doesn't make a difference here. The point is that if the truthness of what makes something moral, let's do the youth of Rotalem. Is something good because God says it, or did God say it because he knows it's good based off some independent standard?
Hmm. No, God is goodness itself. The goodness.
Okay, but the question is something good because God says it, or did God say it because he knows goodness corresponds to some set of facts?
Well, it's both because God is goodness.
That
Everything
can't
God.
it can't be both.
So
So like if I say like I like
what?
chocolate, that can't be objectively true for
Why
like the
can't it be both?
universe.
I mean, let me just give you an example of something created where it can be both. Have you heard about, like quantum mechanics, and you know how
Yeah.
there's certain particles that can be both a one and a zero, which seems to contradict all of this philosophy and law of contradiction. So that's just one example of something that does not fit in our current paradigm, that doesn't make sense, but yet it's still true.
Well, it doesn't. quantum mechanics doesn't violate the laws of logic. It
Well,
does not do
in a
that.
sense that it does, because I forget what it's called. I think it's like called a quantum particle or something, but it can be both a 1
Particle
and a 0.
duality is particle duality.
Yeah, but it can be both a
Wave
1 and a
particle.
0 at the
A
same
wave,
time.
it can be both a wave and a particle at the same time.
Yeah, which doesn't
That's
make any.
it does. The quantum logic doesn't violate the laws of logic. It's not.
It was just one example. I'm just saying there's nothing like it. There's nothing in the created world like God. And so I was just giving an easy way to understand it.
That does not help understand it. That's like quantum.
Okay, well,
glue.
we agree that it's stance independent. We just have different ways of justifying our beliefs. So would you like to
Sure.
move on to young Earth? I think.
Sure, why not?
Okay. So you believe the world is billions of years old.
13.8 billion something.
Actually, no, isn't it 14 billion? Are you sure about that?
13.8 billion.
13.8. So why do you think it's that old?
Through the evidence and novel testable predictions of LIGO, gravitational waves, the cosmic microwave background.
How does that tell that it's billions?
Well, if you measure the speed of light, and we measure the redshift of the light we see from the cosmic microwave background, we can measure the age or the length of time it would take for light to get far enough away to have the redshift that it has, and we can estimate the age of the universe to be.
So you're saying the light seems to be billions of years old, so the universe has to be at least that old. Is that correct?
Sort of. That would be the evidence. Yes.
Yes, that's the evidence.
It doesn't have to, but it's evidence. Yes.
But haven't all these things only been studied for about 100 years or so?
Sure.
So what you're
Why
doing,
would the length of studying it affect the truth of it?
well, because you're examining a phenomenon that has behaved in a certain way for hundreds of years. But what you're doing is taking 100 years of a principle behaving in a certain way and saying that it must have never been changed. It had to always function this way. I mean, is it logically possible that the speed of light slowed down, that it sped up? Yes. So on this view, if you're saying that with certainty that the Earth is billions of years old, you are basically taking 100 years.
Well, there's no certainty in science. It's probabilities. It's all based on.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm skeptical of the claims that it's billions of years old, because what they're doing is they're taking this principle that has behaved in a certain way for 100 years and they're extrapolating and say it has never changed. In 1,000 years, in 1,000,000 years, in 1,000,000,000 years, it has behaved in exactly the same way. And as someone who is skeptical of things, I can say, well, that extrapolation can never be justified. And so I'm not going to make a claim because I don't know. I can't say with certainty that it is billions. It could have changed. It could have stayed exactly the same. Either way, it's an
evidence
assumption.
it's changed.
Do you have any evidence it hasn't changed?
Yes.
Well, okay. What is it?
We test the speed of light constantly in all of our theories, and the predictions come out to be correct every time.
Did you test it 1,000 years ago? 1,000,000 years ago?
No, but we don't need to. So if we have a prediction that light has been consistent throughout time, we can make a prediction that, for example, we'll only see universes form at about the 4 billion year mark or something like that, where we can say that we'll only see universes that are X amount of redshift and not more than X amount of redshift, because it would be impossible.
But they have actually recently they found universes that are older than the Big Bang, which makes no sense.
No, they didn't. They definitely did not. No.
Yeah.
No.
But okay. But this is what I'm saying is that you didn't study the speed of light 1,000 years ago. Is it logically possible that it did change? Is it?
Yes, it's logically possible. Just means there's no logical contradiction. So yes, it's logically possible. But the way
so how do you know?
Because we have lots of evidence that it didn't.
Based on current assumptions. Based on current assumptions.
Totally fine. Totally fine. So like I can say that I can do a test that fossils exist thousands of years ago, because I can predict if fossils exist thousands of years ago, we will find Tiktaalik, a transitional fossil between a fish and a lizard, at this exact point in this exact field between these strata of geography. And if we look, so this is before we know, we haven't looked yet. We make a prediction that if evolution is true, if the world is tens of millions of years old, we will find this particular fossil at this particular layer of the strata, and only this particular layer of the strata. And if we look and we find it, that is confirmation of the hypothesis, whatever it is. So if I can make predictions or hypotheses about as far back into the future or as far into the future, as far back into the past as I want, as long as I'm able to predict things about the future I don't know yet and I get them right, that's evidence the hypothesis is true, even if I wasn't able to test the hypothesis billions of years ago. So the fact that I'm able to make predictions about the future and give us knowledge of things we don't know yet, if it works, is evidence for predictions or hypotheses about the past, even though I wasn't there.
But you can never know with certainty if it really did, because it could have sped up and that could have all happened. And
Wait,
based on our
wait,
current
wait,
assumptions,
I
on our
agree.
based on
I
our current
agree.
model.
I agree. We can't
Yeah.
know with certainty, but it's
Oh no,
still
so
evidence.
that's all. That's what I'm saying is that, like, I don't know. I'm not saying, oh, it has to be 6,000 years old. I'm saying I don't know. It's at least 10,000 to 6,000 years old, because we can look to other methods like history. Human history only starts around that. Written history starts 10,000 to 6,000 years old. You don't find it weird that humans were around for 350,000 years and they just all discovered how to write at the exact same time? Like
We did.
civilizations that were completely separate, the Aztecs, the Chinese, everywhere in the world just happened to discover writing at the exact same time.
They
So I'm
didn't.
saying that we can only safely assume it's only at least 10,000 to 6,000 years old. You are relying on assumptions that cannot be justified. And while it may find results that are consistent, we still can never know with certainty. Like, if you made the claim that it's 10,000 to billions years old, you can never know that with certainty. And so as a skeptic, I'm saying I don't know. It's at least 10,000.
Writing doesn't give you certainty. I don't know. I don't understand what
It's
you're.
just one of the it's one of the other
Wait,
ways,
wait, wait.
because
So if we look at human writing, the oldest
Mhm.
human writing is slightly like 5,000 something years ago from Egypt,
Yeah,
and we didn't all develop writing at the same time. We developed at
well,
different
around the
times in
same
different
time.
locations, plus or minus 3,000 years.
Okay, yeah.
Or more, because there's people who haven't even discovered writing yet. In Papua New Guinea, they don't have writing yet. So plus or minus 5,000 years, we discovered it in.
Yeah.
Um, that doesn't give us certainty that the world is 5,000 years old. Like, for example, we could have been created by magical leprechauns 5 seconds ago.
You're
So we
right,
can't
you're
be
right.
certain that that the world is at least 5,000 years old. We don't even know that. We
Yeah.
can't know
No,
that
you're
with certainty.
right.
But we have
But do
evidence,
we
right? The
do we have good
writing,
reason to
right,
believe? I
right.
say, if you're right, let's say the Earth really is billions of years old. Well, I'm not incorrect in saying it's at least 10,000 to 6,000 years old.
Wait,
But
wait, wait,
let's
no. So
say,
I was going a different direction. So I want to make sure that we can't be certain that the world is 5,000 years old, but the evidence of the writing gives us good reason to believe the world is 5,000 years old, right?
yeah, it's one of the
Right.
evidences.
That's enough. So if we have evidence that the world is billions of years old, that's good reason to believe the world is billions of years old, even though we're not certain. So we don't need to be certain for either
Yeah.
case. But if we
No,
have good
you do need.
reason,
Don't you see the difference between speculating about what happened billions of years ago and what happened thousands of years ago, when we have written proof that humans were around at this point? We have no proof. That it's all about speculation and extrapolation.
what do you think the difference here is? So if there's a kind of evidence that like humans
You're
write
less
stuff,
skeptical.
less skeptical.
Yeah,
No,
like
I'm
you're
not.
willing to have more faith in saying that these principles have been exactly unchanged.
No,
Yeah, well, I just think your position requires more faith.
I'm not sure. I'm not following here. So we have a kind of evidence, human writing, and we think human
Hmm.
writing accurately dates back to 5,000 years thanks to
Yeah.
carbon dating. Okay. I
No,
think
there's
that's
other ways that
reliable.
they tell that. They can
Nope.
read the. Yes, they can.
Nope. Like the way we know that the earliest writings is 5,000 years old is because we can carbon date the rocks that they're carved into in Egypt. It's not, we
There's
can't
other
like look
ways
at the
to tell
writing.
it.
Nope.
Yeah.
No. What do you
Okay.
think the
No,
other ways are?
because they can see the writing styles. There's other ways for them
So
to
so
see.
if there's no prior writing and we see the first writing, how does
Mhm.
looking at the writing styles tell us how old it is?
Well, we can see the rate of change in the writings, like how it changed in our lifetime. Like we can see. I'm just saying that either way, let's say that carbon
Looking at
dating
the
is
rate of
accurate up to
changing in language
6,000.
today, and you're trying to infer changes into the past based on how language changes today, and you think that's an accurate way to measure time.
Well, no, because on both worldviews, I'm saying that, let's say carbon dating is, we don't know if anything changed, but we're saying on both systems, they both confirm that it's at least this old. And so you're right that it is an assumption saying that, oh, the rate of change, because either way, I mean, if you wanted to be 100% skeptical, you could say, yeah, we were only created 5 seconds ago. We were created right now. But, but, like, I'm just saying there's a level of certainty, and I'm willing
Yeah.
to have a level of certainty saying that, confirming that, okay, carbon dating and the rates of change and writing styles and other ways, we can say that it was at least this old. You get rid of the writing and you're just putting it on the extrapolation. So I'm just saying, like, it's more possible for you to be wrong, because I'm saying it's only at least this old.
Well, so one,
And also, like,
pattern going in through the changes in patterns in language today happen much faster than they did in the past. So if you were going
yeah.
to try to infer time in the past, you would not get 5,000 years if you tried to measure the rate of change in language today and infer
Well,
back.
we've also been studying for it for a lot longer. We haven't just
Right.
been
That's
studying
why
it
you
for 100
can't.
years.
That's why you can't use that as a metric to infer to the past, because
Well,
there's no like exponential growth pattern of the rate of change in language that we can then infer in the past. It's completely random. The rate of change in different cultures and language changes completely
I'm
at
just
different
saying there's
speeds.
lots of different
That
methods of how they do it, but and
no,
also, but what I brought up earlier was that the new like studies on DNA are saying that if the world was billions of years old, we would expect to see way more species than we do, and it only ever fits in a young Earth model. It's from those books and studies.
no one says that in
Well,
biology.
Nathaniel, he has a PhD in biology from
He's a
Harvard. Why would I?
pseudoscientist. He doesn't
Oh,
publish in
yes, but I
academic
should listen to
journals.
you, who has no qualifications in biology at all.
No, you should listen to the academic published papers in the field of biology. Jensen doesn't publish in biology. He's
I
not
know,
an
but other
academic
scientists
biologist.
in his field who share his same hypothesis do have research on it. And
No,
also,
they don't.
just because something is pure research, you realize it doesn't automatically make it true. The majority of pure
Right.
research is
That just
false.
means it's peer reviewed. So like what
Yes.
happens in peer review is that you present data to the experts in the field and they can contrast that data with their data to see if it's correct or not. So pseudoscientists aren't able to publish in peer review because their data doesn't correspond to the other data in the field. That's the point, is that the only point of peer review is that it filters out pseudoscience. That's all the point. That's the only thing it does.
But you know that the majority of peer-reviewed papers are false, so that's not.
Majority of every scientific theory was false. Like Newtonian mechanics was false.
And they
But
used to be considered science, right?
yes, but again, the
So
only point
exactly.
of
So the thing,
the point of peer review is to filter out pseudoscience. That's all it does. It doesn't prove anything
but you
right.
just said things that used to be considered pseudoscience have been correct, and that peer review.
No,
Yeah.
that's not the case. So it's never been the
Yes.
case that something that was considered pseudoscience that was rejected from peer review ended up being correct. Like no,
Plate tectonics.
plate tectonics were not
Yes.
considered pseudoscience.
Yes, they were.
They were not rejected from peer review papers. And
Cigarettes use doctors used to say, "Yep, smoke a pack a day. That's the science." And now we know
that
cigarettes
wasn't
are.
published in peer reviewed papers. No.
Oh,
So
but all the doctors and everything were promoting it. They were just saying, "Oh, just trust the science."
peer review is a specific process doctors say is not peer review. Peer review is a specific thing that involves.
I know, but I'm just saying the scientific authorities and peer review is not. I mean, who peer reviews the peer review? And you're just saying, oh, it's pseudoscience. It's pseudoscience. But lots of things have been considered pseudoscience. Lots of things. I mean, Darwin, a lot of the things that he promoted were considered scientific, like all the, scientific racism and eugenics. And that was considered the leading morality. This is where the tide is leading us. And that
You're
led to
going way
Nazism.
off topic. The only thing I said was a peer review filters out pseudoscience. That's the only thing I said. I didn't say it's right. I didn't say that you.
Then why are you bringing it up if it's not right?
Because Jensen doesn't publish in peer reviewed papers because it doesn't correspond to the data in the field. That's the only thing I said. Like, there's nothing to do with like 100% correctness. He's not an expert in the field. That's the only point.
So a Harvard PhD means nothing. He's not an expert.
Yes, having a Harvard PhD doesn't make you an expert in the field. Being able to publish in peer-reviewed journals in the field makes you an expert in the field.
Do you think that the scientific authorities can ever be biased, or do you think they're always they just want the truth?
Yes, they're all biased. That's the point of peer review, is to filter out the bias.
So do you think peer review? But you just said peer review can be wrong, and we know the majority of it is false. So
the fact that it can be wrong and having a bias are two separate things. So the point of peer review is every individual has a bias, and every individual wants their particular theory to be right. And so in order to filter out those biases, what you do is you take a paper or an idea and you present it to all of them, and they all try to destroy it. They all say, nope, that's wrong, I'm right. And so if every single person with every single bias is trying to prove a theory wrong and they can't, then that means that all of their personal biases have been filtered out because they were not able to use their biases to prove the data wrong. So the point of peer review is to filter out biases. Can the conclusion still be incorrect? Yes. You can still filter out all the biases. Yes, everything is, all science is wrong the majority of the time. That's fine. But again, peer review filters out biases. Jensen can't publish in academic papers because it's nothing but bias. He's not an expert in the field. So I agree, most scientists are wrong. He's just
how do you measure that? Oh, they're actually not biased. There's no way to. There's no peer review on it.
They're all biased. They're all biased.
So they're all biased. So you're saying the peer review is biased, and it's also false.
No, the peer review filters out the bias because it pits biases against one another.
But you just admitted that you admitted that all the people who are doing it are biased.
Yeah,
So
that's so we can filter out biases by pitting one bias against another. So if
so
all
one
people
bias
are
wins out.
biased, no. So like if everybody has their own bias, like everybody's
Mhm.
biased in their own way, they think their pet theory is correct. And you present a new theory of a different person. He comes along and is like, I got a theory. Now all of the other scientists are like, no, you're wrong, I'm right. They all have a bias, they all think they're right. And just, so if they're trying their best to prove that guy wrong and prove them right, but can't, that means all of their biases have been filtered out because they're trying to use their bias. They're using their bias to the best of their ability to try to prove that guy wrong, and they can't. So that means their bias has been filtered out of the equation. Even though that guy had a bias, well, that guy had a bias, he wanted his theory to be right. That's true. And that theory was presented to all of the other people with all of the other biases, and they tried to destroy it because they didn't want it to be
But you
true,
don't know if they
but
all
they
tried to
couldn't.
destroy it, especially since money has
That's
got so intertwined with science. I mean, the science keeps changing. I mean, you have people like Bill Nye saying, "Oh yeah, there's
the
only two
way.
genders,"
Uh,
but now the science says it's peer reviewed. Don't you don't
but
and this
oh,
and they were all against the bias, but the
no,
science
no.
just says there's multiple genders. There's
That's a
thousands of
different
genders.
topic. So the
Well,
way
no, it's
you
just an
know that
example.
works, the way you get famous in science is by proving everybody else wrong. Einstein, when he published his paper, everybody hated it. They thought it was wrong. They couldn't prove it wrong. He got right. He proved everybody else wrong and won. So the way you get rich in science, you don't really get rich in science, but the way you get famous in science is by proving everybody else wrong.
Do you think
They
it's
don't just
possible?
like
Do you
what.
think it's possible that maybe there was an Einstein and maybe there was people who they let their bias get the best of them? Is that a possibility that maybe he's pseudoscience, he's pseudoscience? You think, or do you think the peer review is always anti-bias and the Einstein will
It's
always
always
win out?
anti-bias.
I
They
know, but I'm
always win
saying
out. So
that
like I can give
you
you
can never
examples of
know.
like Ludwig Boltzmann. Ludwig Boltzmann was the guy who invented the theory of the atom. They all hated it. Nobody liked it. So they condemned him, they ostracized him, he lost his job, he committed suicide years later. None of his ideas were accepted. But guess what? The peer review went out and we accepted the atom. He was right. He was
Mhm.
correct. Peer review had discovered that, yep, he was right. And all the people with their biases were wrong. They couldn't prove it wrong. He won. So biases are eliminated through peer
Yeah.
review. Yes.
But do you think every bias has always been eliminated through peer review, or do you think it's logically possible that there are biases that never get through? Like you would agree it's possible that
There are
there was a bias.
biases that never get
Yes,
through.
yes.
I
Like
don't know what that means.
if they have a bias and maybe like sometimes they win out and the truth wins out, but is it possible that something false continues to be promulgated even though it's been peer reviewed? Is that possible?
I still don't know what you're saying. Like, is it possible that somebody had a crackpot idea that had no evidence that happened to be right?
No, I'm saying what they do have evidence, and I'm saying that they are okay. They are right. Is it possible that the bias is what kept it from? Oh, it's
No.
always pseudoscience. So you think peer review has always been 100% successful? They're
At
everything.
filtering out bias, that's the purpose. Yes.
Yes. So it's always had 100% success rate.
At filtering out bias, not at being
Yes.
correct. So
So
yes.
you can't conceive of a possibility where bias got the best of them and a good study was thrown away because of bias. The peer review always
Um,
went out.
yes, that's kind of how technology works. Like if you prove your idea works and it like if a guy invented a gun, the gun is going to take over. You
But
don't like bias it
okay,
out of
but
the way.
no. But something that is more theoretical, like I mean, Darwinism and like young ancient Earth is an unfalsifiable position, and
No, it's
so
not. That's very easy to
yes, it
falsify.
is.
Rabbits in the Precambrian would falsify Darwinism, but
That's
the point is that evolution was extremely falsifiable, but it made predictions. It made successful predictions that was able to tell us about the future. There are dozens of them.
on micro level,
Um,
not the macro.
no, at the macro level. So, like one of
Yeah,
the
on the
predictions
micro.
is at the macro level.
No. Do you have a peer review study on how we saw the first
Yes.
whale? The first
How we
whale?
saw the first.
How the first whale emerged?
A prediction would be like Tiktaalik predicting that we're going to find a transitional fossil between a fish and a lizard at this exact strata in this exact location. Before we find it, that's a prediction, and it was confirmed to be correct. So that's a prediction that was confirmed.
Okay. I mean, there was lots of frauds like Piltdown Man, Nebraska Man. A lot of these are still in
Yes, there
biology
were
textbooks today.
frauds.
Like Ernest Hagel's fake embryo drawings, that's still in biology
Yes,
textbooks
yes,
today.
there were frauds, but
I'm
the
just
things that
saying,
were
just because someone
confirmed are
makes
not frauds.
I know, but someone makes no. It's still in biology textbooks today. But I'm just saying, don't you think there's current science that is going to be considered false later, or do you think everything that you're just worshiping the peer review because
Yes, there are things that are going to be considered false later, but the evidence and the confirmations are still evidence now. If it makes a successful prediction about the future and is confirmed, that is still evidence, even if it proves to be wrong in the future. So like if Newton predicted that the perihelion of Mercury would be discovered or something, and he got it right, that's evidence of Newtonian mechanics, even though later we discovered he was wrong. The ability to make future testable predictions is still evidence of what you believe. So
yes. But you can have wrong models and come to right conclusions. Like they used to believe in static universe, that the universe had always existed until a Catholic priest came up with the Big Bang. And then even though their models, they were able to get reliable results in the static universe, but then a better model. So why put your faith in just the newest science? I mean,
the
I'm just
one
saying
that
be
makes the
skeptical.
most novel predictions. So the model that makes the most successful predictions about the future is the one that has the most evidence.
Okay, but I'm saying there's times in history, like the static universe, that they would be proven wrong. And instead of just putting your faith, oh, the most trendy new science, you could just say,
Well,
it's great that we're speculating about this, but I'm
the
just not
way
gonna.
the way they were proven wrong was that they made more novel testable predictions. So the
Yeah.
one that makes the most novel testable predictions is the one that is the most reasonable to accept. And until a new one comes along and makes more novel predictions, you shouldn't accept it because it has less evidence.
So don't you think it's possible that a lot of the stuff we believe now will later be proven
Yes,
false?
it's highly likely. I
Yes.
think that's
So
definitely likely.
so wouldn't a healthy level of skepticism be warranted where I'm not going to say for certain if
Yes.
micro and macro evolution, because this is just the newest model.
Well,
Why?
it's rational to think that we will have updated models in the future, but if there's a different model that has less evidence, it is not rational to say that model is equally or more plausible than the one that has more evidence. So if there's a model that we've essentially proven wrong or has very little evidence, like young Earth creationism or the distinction between micro and macro evolution, those are things that have no evidence. And we compare that to something that has lots and lots of evidence, like microevolution and macroevolution are literally the same thing. There's lots of
They
evidence of
are.
that. We should accept the one that has lots of evidence. Now, it's possible it will be overturned or replaced by something else, but it's
Yeah,
not going to be replaced
exactly.
by the thing that has less evidence.
But no, but I'm saying over time, it gets more and more and more evidence, and then that's how it disproved. But us right now, we don't know. There could be all of a sudden. I think we already think there is a lot of evidence, but I'm saying in the future, could there be a future where all of a sudden, oh, there's this new evidence? I mean, I already think we have it, but let's say we have all this new evidence, and actually, young Earth was right, and ancient Earth, is that possible?
Yes, it's possible, but
Yeah.
there's no evidence of it. So like,
Well, not. Well, I think there is, but I'm just saying not yet in your
right.
worldview.
So if there isn't any evidence for it yet, it would be irrational to believe it.
Well, I think there is evidence, but I'm just saying you conceded that it was logically possible that in the future, young Earth
Yes,
creationism
yes, of
has
course it is.
the level of evidence that you would ask for. I think there is
Yes,
enough
but
evidence,
what do
but
you
I'm just
think?
saying.
What do you think the purpose of saying that? Yes, so it's possible that in the
Mhm,
future there is different evidence. Yes,
yes.
therefore,
Well, therefore, I'm just saying that it's not the best to just make these grand claims and it's fine to speculate. I'm glad they're doing the science because I think, we should always thrive to follow the truth. But I'm just saying, why put your faith in just the latest science?
well,
Like,
I don't have any faith. I trust the
well, you do
evidence.
have faith.
No,
Yeah. You have
faith is
faith.
a belief on insufficient evidence or no evidence.
You
I believe the
insufficient.
evidence.
I know, but like for example, you have no idea of the speed of light change. That's a belief. That's a faith belief you
But I have
have.
evidence that supports that. Like I
You
don't
don't have
believe that
evidence of what happened
because
billions of years ago. That's a
yeah,
faith
I do.
belief.
It's called inductive evidence. So I can inductively test the speed of light now
Do you know the
and
problem of
for all the times.
induction?
Yes, I do. It's still evidence though. The problem of induction
It's
doesn't
you
make
can never
induction not
justify
evidence.
inductive reasoning
Yes, you
on your
can.
system. How?
Um, it's because it gives us future testable predictions.
Okay, just because it's happened that way in the past doesn't mean it'll always happen that way in the
It
future, or
doesn't.
it's
It's
always been that
evidence.
way.
It's evidence. It is. So it's
No, a
evidence.
perfectly logical person, a perfectly skeptical person would not use that. That's what David Hume was all about.
Yes, every rational person uses induction. Induction is really important.
Yeah,
It's really
but they
good.
can't justify it.
Yes, they can because it
No, they
works.
can't.
It's called pragmatism.
Because it
So
works. Okay, what is no? Because it works, but again, it has worked up to this point.
that's
That's it.
evidence. So it only needs to work once for
I
it to
know,
be
but I'm saying
evidence.
that it's a faith belief for you to say, oh, just because
No.
it's
Wait,
always
so if it works
yes, it's
once,
faith.
that's evidence. It's not a faith belief. I now have a thing that gives me evidence, that gives me a reason to believe it works
What
because it worked once.
it worked once, therefore it will always work. I
Well,
washed my
if
hands and
the
Bitcoin went up.
the more times it works, the more evidence you have.
But is
Once
it
is evidence.
possible? Let's say I wash my hand.
I just want to clarify. Like the point here is that the more pieces of evidence you have, the more rational your belief is, and it's not based on faith. It's based on the number of times it's worked in the past, which isn't
So
faith. That's evidence.
so what I'm
Those are
dividing
opposites.
every time I pray, a miracle happens. It just keeps
That would
happening.
be evidence. That would be phenomenal evidence. I mean, just
So
do that, and I believe in God.
so that it has to happen every single time. But
Well,
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying
no. It wouldn't happen every time. Like the more times
I'm
it
just
happens,
saying
the more
that
evidence it is.
every worldview has some level of faith. I'm willing to admit I have faith in certain things. You
I
have
don't have
faith in
any
certain.
faith. I have zero faith.
You have zero faith. Well,
All of my
couldn't the
beliefs are based
what?
on evidence.
So the law of physics has to be the same in 10 years. It's going to be exactly the
No,
same.
I don't believe in the uniformity of physics at all. No.
You don't what? Well,
The laws of
that's
physics do change. Like the
no,
law of
no. I'm just
gravity changed.
well, I'm just saying on the reasoning that you were using. Do you think the speed of light will always stay the same?
Yes,
That's a belief. Could it
based on
change?
evidence.
But
Based on
could it
evidence.
change? All based on. But
Yes,
there
but
is.
that's
Well, you just admit you have some level of faith.
no, because that's still based on evidence. So faith is a belief without evidence or with insufficient evidence. And I have
I'm saying you
evidence
have
to believe.
insufficient evidence. You
Why
may
would I
do. You
have
may have
insufficient evidence?
because you're just saying, oh, it's always been this way, so it always will be that way.
No,
That's
I'm saying that I've tested it multiple times across spectrums, and those tests give me a hypothesis that it's the same. And then from that hypothesis, I made predictions, and those predictions came out to be true. And because those predictions came out to be true, I'm justified in believing the conclusion that light has always been the same.
but will it always be the same
I'm justified in that conclusion because the predictions were correct.
in the past?
Right. So let me
I'm just saying
walk
you
you
have
through this
some
one.
level
So
of faith. You have some level of
imagine
faith.
you prayed to God and God
Mhm.
gave you a gold brick every time, 100
Yeah.
times in a row or whatever. Are you justified in believing, let's say it's the Christian God. You pray to the Christian God and he gives you a gold brick. Are you justified in believing God is the all-powerful creator of the universe if he confirms all of your predictions 100 times in a row?
But it requires some level of faith. Yes, it would be a justified belief, but it would also require some faith. I'm saying it's like
Why would that require faith? Like that seems like evidence. Like you made
because
double-tested predictions, they confirmed.
there's other reasons. Maybe the reason is because someone across the planet was praying for the same thing, and it happened in my hands. So
Well,
just
it
because,
seems like you're defining faith as not having absolute certainty, which
yeah,
no
that's
one.
what I'm defining it as.
Well, that's
You can
just,
never have absolute certainty. You can never, you can never be absolutely skeptical because you would give up inductive reasoning
okay. Well, no,
and
in
deductive.
philosophy, you don't need certainty for knowledge. So it's called fallibilism. It's the consensus in philosophy and science. You don't need certainty for knowledge. You can have knowledge without certainty. So you don't need that for knowledge,
Yes,
which
but
means you
every
don't need.
view still requires some level of faith. It's just you can't be 100.
No,
So you're saying,
knowledge. If you have knowledge, you don't have faith, right? If you know something, it's not a faith-based claim. You know it. Knowledge, no, right? Knowledge is
is it
not faith.
possible that you have knowledge and you come to believe something true for a bad reason? That's possible. So you could have,
Sure, can
yes,
still
I'm
be
just
true
saying,
though.
no, I know. I'm just saying that you have faith. Like if
Wait. So knowledge, you can't have knowledge and faith at the same time,
no,
right?
you
Those
can. That's what I'm saying is you can have knowledge and faith. But
what?
I'm saying like it's like 70% knowledge,
So
30% faith.
faith is a belief on insufficient evidence, right? Something
That's
like
one
that. So
definite. Faith
close.
is just it requires some level of uncertainty.
That doesn't make sense as a definition. So, like I define faith as a belief on insufficient evidence. That seems to be a good definition for faith. Simply saying faith is not having certainty um, means that you have faith for everything other than I exist.
Yeah, I'm just saying every belief requires some level of faith, and we just have
I
to admit
exist.
that.
What faith does that believe that
I
I
mean,
exist?
maybe you don't exist. There's a possibility, right?
How can I have an experience and not exist at the same time?
I don't know, but I'm just saying, isn't there a world that is logically possible? I mean, I would agree with you, obviously, that yes,
No,
you
it's not logically possible for me to have an experience and for me to not exist.
you can't think of
So
a fantasy world where that happens.
a fantasy world where I have experience and don't exist at the same
Yeah,
time? No.
in a fantasy world,
So
no fantasy.
can there be a fantasy world where I have a direct experience, but also don't exist to have the experience?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this doesn't make sense in our world, but I'm saying in a fantasy world, wouldn't it be possible?
No. I can't imagine a
You
fantasy world where I have a direct experience, but I don't exist to have the experience. If I'm having an experience, I must exist to have the
Yeah,
experience.
no. I agree. In our world, yes, like yeah, the
I don't
transcendental
think
argument for
there's
the self.
any logically possible world where I can exist and have an experience, but also not exist at the same time. That's logically impossible. That would be a not logically possible world.
Okay, and I'm just talking about a fantasy world. I'm just talking about hypotheticals.
Well, so like hypothetical worlds are usually classed in philosophy in several classes: logically possible, logically impossible. So like you're asking, can I imagine a world with a round square? Can I imagine a world with a married bachelor? No, I cannot imagine those things. I literally, logical contradictions are things we literally can't imagine. That's what a logical contradiction means. It's impossible for us to imagine it.
Okay. I don't know what the point is, but
so you can have a belief without
so
faith.
Do you have any other questions? What?
Belief without faith. That was the point. It was like, I believe I exist. I don't have any faith. There's no faith. I have zero faith in my belief that I exist.
Okay. Do you have faith that tomorrow the sun will rise tomorrow?
No.
Okay. You don't have any faith in that?
No, I have evidence of that.
But doesn't that require some faith still? It could just explode.
Do computers have faith?
No, it doesn't have a mind.
But computers have conclusions. They have a probabilistic conclusion. Here's the evidence. Here's the conclusion. Here's the probability is going to happen.
They're just repeating what is. They're not actually it's not like a human mind.
So like a computer that says the probability of the quantum particle collapsing in this state is 37%, and the probability of having in this position is 64%. Does the computer have faith? Well, no. It's like it has a conclusion based on evidence, right? It's just saying, here is the deterministic conclusion, even though it doesn't know. It doesn't have certainty one way or the other. It has a probabilistic conclusion. It's not faith. It doesn't have faith. It's just saying, here's the probability based on the evidence.
So are you a computer? Someone
sort
says.
of, yes. My beliefs are
so you're just do you believe in free will?
No.
You don't believe in free will?
Nope.
So we're just biological robots.
No, we're deterministic robots.
Okay, yes, determinist. We're just random evolved monkeys, and there's no ought statements, but morality does exist, but there's no ought reason. So like, we're just
oughts are hypothetical. So I tried to explain you do have oughts. Oughts are if a hypothetical imperative versus a categorical imperative, you can still have oughts. So if you know what morality is and you say, I want to be moral, I ought to do what morality is. You do have oughts. I tried to explain that earlier.
But there's no reason to follow the true or false. Actually, we don't even. There's no truth, because we could be determined to believe something false biologically.
Even if we were determined to believe something false, the truth would still be there. It would be that we were determined to believe something false.
Because the truth. It would be truth. Yeah, exactly. There's only what is. There can't be truth and not. There has to be truth and not truth, and it requires choice. If there is no free will, then there's only what is.
Truth. I don't understand anything you just said. So even if I'm determined to believe everything that's false or something,
that would be what is.
The fact that I'm determined to believe everything false is truth, right?
That's just what is. There is no truth. They're just what is.
What does the word truth mean?
Well, truth requires the contrast of false, and you need a choice between it, because it would be true that you believe something false, but there is no true or false, because there's only what is.
Truth is the property of a sentence if it corresponds to reality. That's what truth means. So like the sky is blue. That sentence accurately describes reality. The sentence is true.
But if I said the sky was green and I was biologically determined, that's not true or false. That's just what is.
That would be false.
How can there be a false? You need choice.
No,
yes.
Like if a calculator says 1 + 1 = 7, it would be false. It would be wrong.
That's just what is. That's not true or false. There is no, because it is true that it believes that there is no true or false. It requires choice.
So before any humans existed, was it true that God existed?
Well, on our worldview, there is free will. There is true or false.
Before any humans existed, no humans, no free will. I don't know if God has free will or not, but
before God has free will, we have free will.
So, but God can't be wrong, right? God doesn't have an option of false. He just has true. He's got true as the only option. He doesn't have.
Well, that's just God is truth itself. So it's like there's nothing like him.
Right. So like reality in my context would be truth itself. And so a statement about reality would be
true. That's just what is. It's not true. It's just what is.
Like God is what is in your worldview.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
that's
know, and he created
true.
humans with free will, and we can choose between the good, the evil, the true, the false.
You may want to Google the definition of truth in philosophy. Truth is the property of a sentence and whether or not it corresponds to reality. I don't understand anything you're saying about like you need some kind of you need like free will for truth. That doesn't make any sense. That means if
Yes,
there's
it
no free will,
does.
there's no truth. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I'm saying. If there's no free will, then there's no truth. Because let's
That
say
makes zero sense.
how does that
If,
make zero sense?
okay, so if there is no free will, would it be true that there is no free will?
That would just be what is. There is no true or false. There's just what is.
That doesn't. So if there is no free will, now if that sentence is true, then that would mean it is the case that there is no free will in this universe. That would be a true sentence. But what you're saying is if there is no free will, that sentence isn't true, which means there would be free will.
I'm saying it destroys the possibility of true and false. There would only ever be what is.
It doesn't make sense. I don't understand what that even means. Like
Okay. If we're
like that like it sounds to me like it sounds like you're saying if there's no free will, everything in the universe becomes a logical contradiction and just random or something.
No.
That doesn't
It's
make
not
sense.
logical. It's not a logical contradiction. It's just what happens.
Again, that doesn't make sense. Like if truth doesn't exist, truth and false, then that means there is no logic in a universe.
No.
Truth and false are properties of logic. They're not properties of free will.
Yeah. So there's
Like,
no logic either.
A
There's
equal
only what
A?
is. It's like looking at a painting. You don't see the painting as true or false. It's just what the painting is. That's what
Okay, so
a
the
world without free.
law of identity, A equals
Yeah.
A, is that true?
Yes, in this world, yes. But it requires contrast. You
What?
can only. Oh no! Wait, you said true equals true, right?
No, I
What?
said A equals A. So law of identity is A
Yes.
equals A.
Yes.
So is the sentence A equals A, the law of identity? Is the law of identity
Yes.
true?
Yes, in this world, yes, we have a law of identity.
In which world is it not true?
In a world where there isn't free will, because there's only
It
what
doesn't
is.
make sense. What?
Okay.
Like,
Because
so let's say
let's
there's
say-
a world with no free will, and I ask, does A equal A? And you're like, no. In this world, A does not equal A.
that would just be what is.
That doesn't make sense. That literally does not like A equals A in all possible worlds. That's what logically possible means. There can't be a world where A doesn't equal A. That would literally be logically impossible.
Well, think of a world with two choices, true and false. It requires two options. If there's only one option, it would be true because that would be what is. That would
make, like, okay,
Oh my.
help me here. So there's a universe with no free will, and I ask, does A equal A? And you're like, no. Okay, well, so if A does not equal A in that universe, that means there is a logical contradiction. Because A equals A is the law of logic. And so if A does not equal A, if it is not true that A equals A, that means there must be a logical contradiction in the universe. Or I'm not right?
There's no truth, there's no false, there's no, because whatever I'm biologically determined to believe, I would just believe that.
God. So again, so if A does not equal A in a universe with no free will, that means there's a logical contradiction, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why free will is is not logical. If you deny free will.
I don't even know. I don't even know how to respond to that. If there's no free will, A does not equal A. Like, okay, that doesn't make sense. All right, let's go.
Well, because because just think, if I was in this world, you were logically determined that you say that, and that there wouldn't be true or false. It would just be what is. That's just what you're saying.
You say those words again, but those words still don't make sense to me. Like if A equals A, it's true that A equals A, and you don't need free will for that. Free will doesn't make that any more or less true. Like you still need truth, even if there's no free will. Like A equals A is true, regardless of free will.
So is there something false in this world without free will?
Yes, like all sentences that don't correspond to reality would be false. So like if a calculator says 1 + 1 = 7, that would be false.
But wouldn't it be true that the calculator says something that is false, but that would be true because that's what is. Yeah,
it's a different sentence. So does the sentence, the calculator is saying a false sentence, correspond to reality? Yes, that sentence corresponds to reality.
So that's what I'm saying.
Does the sentence 1 + 1 = 7 correspond to reality? No, so that's a false sentence. So a sentence that does not correspond to reality would be false.
But it can, it could never say anything else. So it will always be true for the calculator to say that. So there's no truth. The calculator is always going to say that.
Yeah. So it's true that the calculator will always say 1 + 1 = 7.
Yeah.
But it's also true that the statement 1 + 1 = 7 will never correspond to reality, therefore it's false.
No, because that's just what's happening.
Oh my God. Okay, let's go a different direction.
Yeah.
To me,
I
free
gotta
will.
I gotta head out in 5
All right,
minutes, but
all right, sure.
is there
So
anything you wanted to cover?
sure. Let's say free will seems logically impossible. Like it doesn't seem to make sense that there could be such a thing as free will. Everything is either determined or random. How can something be free logically? If because as far as I understand it, it's only possible for it to either be determined by prior causes, or it's not determined by prior causes, in which case it's random. So I don't understand how there could even be free will logically.
Well, I don't understand how there couldn't be free, because look at you are here like talking with me, but
Yep.
you could like if we're in a debate or something and you're arguing, you're arguing for what is true, but I'm biologically determined what is false, or you're biologically determined what is false. It destroys why would we debate if there is no choice? Because we're all biologically determined already to believe a certain thing. What is?
Well, we could either be determined to debate by prior physical forces, or there could be random interactions that cause us to debate, and either of those would cause us to debate without free will. So, like any action, any choice, any decision is either going to be determined by prior causes, which made it happen, or it was determined by no prior causes. Zero prior causes caused it, which means it would be random. And those seem to be the only two options for any possible choice you make. It either has to be determined by prior causes, in which case it's determined, or it has to be determined by no prior causes. If it's determined by no prior causes, it's random. So I don't see a third option for any given choice that could
So
get you free will.
what's the point of debate if everyone's just biological? It's not really you talking. It's just you're a biological determined robot. I'm a biological determined robot. What's the point of even talking? I mean, we're
Money,
never.
fun, like
What's the
point
point of
is
fun? What's the point of fun in this? These chemical reactions in
dopamine.
our brain.
Well, I'm not understanding how this provides a third option. So, asking what is the point doesn't give me a different option other than it was either determined by prior causes or it was not determined by prior causes. Like it's philosophy, true dichotomy, either P or not P. In this, the question is something determined by prior causes P or not determined by prior causes not P? And so it's a true dichotomy. It's either P or not P. And so there, you'd have to give me a third option to show that this is a false
Well, both.
dichotomy.
Well, because both of those options require choice. If there is no choice, then there's only ever P. There's never anything else. There's only that. There's no other choice. We're determined.
What? So P is a prior choice is determined by some prior causes. So not free, not choice. Not P is not determined by prior causes. So random, complete randomness. And so P is determined, not P is random. Neither one of those are a choice. How can you insert anything into this equation to get free will?
Because there's no true or false. There's just what is. It would just
Oh,
be
God.
that P. I gotta head out. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you too. It was a pleasant conversation. Do you want to give any links or references where people can find your work before you go?
Yeah, just search up like Orthodox Kyle, and it'll show up on YouTube. But yeah, nice talking to you.
All
Bye.
right, talk to you later. Have a nice day.